Chapter 1036. Mo Qinshin, who had been gloomy because of the purchase of medicinal liquid at a high price last time, sneered when he heard the news. Yu Qingwei can already refine elixirs. Unless that honorary chief can refine elixirs, how can she win against her? Luo Qingtong is definitely going to be humiliated this time. Mo Qinshuan's mood improved a little when he thought of this. Unfortunately, Yu Qingwei's conditions were too mild. She only wanted to settle things peacefully. Otherwise he could have taught Luo Qingtong and the rest a good lesson. Thinking that it was the other party and Ma Chenyi who had arranged a good show for him, causing him to suffer heavy losses, Mo Qinshin gritted his teeth fiercely. That Luo Qingtong got away with it for nothing. At this moment, a member of the Dragon Regiment suddenly said, "Your Highness, we secretly found out about Yu Qingwei from the Qingwei group. Luo Qingtong definitely knows about it. That honorary chief is extremely strong in refining elixirs. She definitely didn't expect the other party to lose. If Yu Qingwei doesn't deal with her, we can set up a trap ourselves and use this chance to make Luo Qingtong jump in herself. We can also set up a trap for His Highness the Crown Prince to help you vent your anger." Mo Qinshuan's eyes narrowed as soon as that member of the Dragon Regiment spoke. "You mean, Your Highness, we can set up a bet?" It was unknown where that member of the Dragon Regiment got this idea from. As soon as Mo Qinshin asked, he immediately spoke with assurance. "We can use this chance to place a bet and see who wins and who loses. Luo Qingtong doesn't know Yu Qingwei's strength. She will definitely bet on the honorary chief to win." At that time, that member of the Dragon Regiment chuckled. Mo Qinshin thought carefully for a while and indeed felt that this was a good idea. He set up a bet and even the reason was justified. He couldn't stand Luo Qingtong and wanted to make things difficult for her. At that time, it would be logical for him to bet on Yu Qingwei. If Luo Qingtong was confident, she would definitely buy from her own side. This plan was flawless. He wasn't afraid that Luo Qingtong wouldn't fall for it. It was a pity that Ma Chenyi definitely wouldn't bet for Yu Qingwei. Otherwise, the two of them would take care of him together. Thinking of this, Mo Qinshin made the final decision. Let's do it." He laughed out loud. The member of the dragon group was very proud, then he said, "Your Highness, you can also use reverse psychology to make Luo Qingtong accept other bets. When the result comes out, you can make her lose money and lose face." As he spoke, he laughed sinisterly. "Good. Very good." Hearing his words, Mo Qinshin felt very comfortable in his heart, and the gloominess in his heart before dissipated. He hurriedly sent someone to spread the news. Very soon, the people of the Empire of Qin's Sacred Court heard about the battle between Yu Qingwei and the honorary champion of the medicine department. They also knew that His Highness King Wu had set up a bet for the result of this battle. He bet that Yu Qingwei would win, and the ratio was 1 to 10. It seemed that His Highness King Wu didn't think highly of Luo Qingtong's side. Or rather, he was deliberately making things difficult for Luo Qingtong's side. Everyone was waiting to see how Luo Qingtong would react. They thought that His Highness King Wu's provocation this time was so obvious. Luo Qingtong and the rest definitely wouldn't pretend not to see it. They would probably go against His Highness King Wu. Chapter 1037. Everyone thought so, and soon they heard the news that Luo Qingtong and the others went to the betting place set by the Dragon Regiment. Your Highness King Wu seems to be in the mood for leisure. Luo Qingtong appeared at the betting place with the Heavenly Evil group and looked at Mo Qinshin, who was sitting in the hall. "It's just for fun. Junior sister Luo can't afford it, right?" Mo Qinshuan's words seemed calm, but in fact he was provoking her. He implied that if Luo Qingtong came to make trouble, she could not afford it. Ordinary people would not be able to stand it when they heard this, let alone Mo Qinshin, who was criticizing Luo Qingtong and betting that she would definitely lose. Given the previous conflict between Luo Qingtong and the Dragon Regiment, it would be strange if she was not angry. Sure enough, as soon as Mo Qinshin finished his words, a trace of coldness flashed across Luo Qingtong's eyes, and then she smiled and said, "How can that be? I'm also here to bet for fun." As she said, she patted the table in front of her and said, "I'll bet as much as Your Highness King Wu." As soon as she said that, Mo Qinshin suddenly sneered. It seems that junior sister Luo is very confident. He looked at Luo Qingtong and then said coldly, "In this case, why don't we add another bet?" He said to Luo Qingtong, "The loser not only has to pay the bet money, but also has to become the other's slave?" Mo Qinshin still could not forget that he wanted Luo Qingtong to be his slave last time. Her appearance and figure were not bad, and it would be good to get her to play with. Thinking of this, he suddenly raised his chin and said to Luo Qingtong, "How about it? Junior sister Luo, do you dare to bet? Luo Qingtong looked at him. Although Luo Yunyang had deliberately lured the other party into setting up this trap, His Highness Martial King was really courting death. In this case she would fulfill his wish. Luo Qingtong thought and said with a faint smile, Your Highness King Wu must be joking. Even if you really lose, how can I dare to make you my slave? Just based on the fact that the other party wanted to be his slave, he wasn't qualified. Moreover, the imperial family of the Empire of Qin was also a troublesome matter. Luo Qingtong was too lazy to go against her for Mo Qinxian. Thinking of this, she suddenly said, Since your highness insists on the bet, then the loser will have to run 10 laps around the Holy Academy, shouting that she is a B***T while running. What do you think? Does your highness dare to bet? Of course, Mo Qinxian could tell that Luo Qingtong was calling him a bitch. Did she think that she would definitely win? Thinking of this, Mo Qinxian sneered. Good. Since junior sister Luo is in such a good mood, then I will accompany you to the end. If she wants to be a bitch, then let her be. As the two of them were talking, they heard a voice. A voice rang out at this moment. How about I bear witness? The young man had a handsome figure, like a clear spring, like flowing water, like a bamboo, like the bright moon. With his hands behind his back, he walked over with the members of the Guiyuan clique. Your Highness. Seeing Ma Qinyi coming, Luo Qingtong nodded to him. Brother, don't you want to play? Seeing that he stood up for Luo Qingtong, Mo Qinxian sneered and said, No need. Ma Qinyi waved his hand. The matter between Luo Qingtong and Yu Qingwei was caused by him. It was not suitable for him to bet on either side. Otherwise he really wanted Mo Qinxian to suffer more losses. I will bear witness. Brother, have you thought it through? Once this bet is made, you can't regret it. If you can't afford to lose, I won't save you face. Chapter 1038. Ma Qinyi looked at Mo Qinxian with a faint smile. Brother, you're right. Please don't be biased when the time comes, Imperial brother. Mo Qinxian's words had a double meaning. It seemed that he was talking about himself, but in fact he was talking about Luo Qingtong. So that Ma Qinyi wouldn't be reluctant to deal with the other party. The group of people opposed each other. Mo Qinxian sneered and asked people to bet all his assets. If he couldn't trick Ma Qinyi, he could trick Luo Qingtong. His brother was so protective of the other party. Maybe he would bet for the other party. If he didn't, then it would be better. If Luo Qingtong couldn't pay for it, then she would pay with her body. He could have a good taste of her. This time he wanted them to pay back all the things that they tricked him last time. Mo Qinxian thought and left with a sneer. Luo Qingtong looked at him and sighed in her heart that some people were stupid and rich. She would be embarrassed if she didn't trick them. Your Highness, do you want to join in? I'll bet for you. Luo Qingtong transmitted a message to Ma Qinyi with a smile. The latter's lips twitched slightly. Forget it. If the two of them bet like this, even if Mo Qinxian was stupid, he would feel that it was wrong. Ma Qinyi was very happy to see him suffer and didn't want to give him a chance to retreat. Okay. Seeing his concern, Luo Qingtong said with a smile, I'll give you a bonus. Hearing this, Ma Qinyi also smiled. The feeling of tricking Mo Qinxian last time was so good. Ever since the latter's rise, he had never felt so refreshed. But soon, the smile on his face disappeared, and then he walked to the side with Luo Qingtong and said, Princess, that chief, is he sure to win? He looked at Luo Qingtong and hesitated. Qingwei should have broken through the realm of alchemist and can refine elixir. The one you know. Ma Qinyi didn't try to find out the identity of that leader, but he was still worried that she would be able to win against Yu Qingwei. Why don't we just forget about it this time? There were plenty of opportunities to set Mo Qinxian up. The dragon chi in my body has been stabilizing day by day, and I will definitely consign him to eternal damnation in the future. Qingwei really wants to reconcile with you. You don't have to take the outcome of this bet to heart. When Luo Qingtong heard him say so much in one breath, she couldn't help but laugh and say, Okay, I naturally have a sense of propriety. You just have to wait and see. She naturally knew that Yu Qingwei sincerely wanted to reconcile with her, which was why she agreed to this bet. They would know when they arrived in Ma Qinyi. Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. She waved at him and left with her people. 3 days later, Luo Qingtong dismissed the people from the Heavenly Demon Group and was about to find a secluded place to change her clothes and participate in the bet as the honorary chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute. But at this moment she bumped into Mo Qinxian on the way. Luo Qingtong. Looking at the girl who was alone, Mo Qinxian narrowed his eyes slightly. There was no one by his side. Today the information he inquired about Luo Qingtong and Yi Luo had arrived, and Tong Hu and the others had gone to collect it. The other people from the dragon group weren't qualified to follow Emo Qinxian. Your Highness King Wu. Luo Qingtong didn't expect to meet Emo Qinxian here. The latter looked at her with a gaze as cold as a snake, which she didn't like very much. Especially the hidden desire in his eyes, which made Luo Qingtong narrow her eyes coldly. Chapter 1039. She reckoned that Emo Qianai wouldn't have much time left to recuperate, so she had to bear with him for a while longer. Luo Qingtong thought, nodded to Emo Qinxian and was about to leave. However, Emo Qinxian stopped her. You are in such a hurry. Are you going to see the honorary chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute? Emo Qinxian looked at Luo Qingtong and sneered. Junior sister apprentice Luo bet a lot before. I don't know if you know that Yu Qingwei's refining ability has actually broken through the realm of alchemist and entered the level of quasi-alchemist, and she can already refine elixir liquid. Will you still be so confident? I'm looking forward to the next gambling fight. I hope you can come up with enough compensation at that time. Of course, there is also the bet of going 10 laps around the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin and shouting, I am a bitch. I'm also looking forward to it. Emo Qinxian looked at Luo Qingtong maliciously, wanting to see her face change dramatically. Today was the day of the gambling fight. He was not afraid that Luo Qingtong would suddenly withdraw the bet, and she would not have that chance. If he told Luo Qingtong the truth now, would she cry and beg for mercy? If that was the case, he would be able to appreciate it. However, he was destined to be disappointed. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. Her eyes were a little strange, as if she wanted to laugh but was holding it back. Emo Qinxian thought so, and suddenly his face darkened. On the other side, Luo Qingtong suppressed her laughter and glanced at Emo Qinxian. Then she immediately followed his words. I'm also looking forward to your Highness King Wu shouting that you are a bitch. I think the scene must be very spectacular and sensational. When Luo Qingtong said this, she could not hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. It is the first time I have seen a person as self-aware as your Highness King Wu. I really admire you, she said and laughed for a while. Her beautiful face was even more dazzling. Luo Qingtong. Emo Qinxian's face was furious. He originally wanted to ridicule Luo Qingtong, but he didn't expect that the other party misinterpreted the meaning in his words and humiliated him back. The blue veins on his forehead were exposed. Looking at the beautiful girl who was smiling brightly, he said coldly, Luo Qingtong, don't be arrogant. Do you think that Ma Qingyi can protect you? I tell you, even if you cry and beg me for mercy, I will not let you go. If you can't take out a huge amount of money, you will pay with your body to pay. It just so happens that I also want to have a taste of the woman that Emo Qianai fancies. Emo Qinxian's eyes. At that time, no one's money except Luo Qingtong's money. He would make this woman regret her actions under his body. However, before he could say anything, Luo Qingtong stopped him. In an instant, an extremely cold and murderous aura locked onto his body. Emo Qinxian's face was pale. Only in an instant he was fixed on the spot by the breath. Who was it? Emo Qinxian's eyes were full of horror. This breath was full of killing intent. He had no doubt that the other party would kill him without hesitation. In an instant, cold sweat came down from Emo Qinxian's forehead, and his legs were weak for a while. Luo Qingtong also felt the existence of this breath. Chapter 1040. Chief Instructor, you're back. Yi Qianren's figure walked out from the shadows not far away. His eyes were cold and murderous as he looked at Emo Qinxian, who was opposite Luo Qingtong. He had just returned from outside and heard the other party talking nonsense to Luo Qingtong. He wanted her to cry and beg him for mercy and wanted her to pay with her body? Yi Qianxian's eyes were full of murderous intent and coldness. The aura all over his body was as cold as a knife, slowly cutting towards Emo Qinxian. He didn't care if he killed the other party. A mere king of martial arts of the Empire of Qin dared to covet his treasures. And with such dirty thoughts, the other party deserved to die. Luo Qingtong looked at the murderous aura all over his body and blinked. No, she couldn't kill Emo Qinxian now. Luo Qingtong still wanted to keep him as a medium to deal with the heavenly doctor. What's more, she had to reverse the dragon energy in his body and return it to Ma Qingyi. How could she let him die so easily? If not, how could she let him live until now? However, Yi Qianxian was so angry now that she was sure that he wouldn't listen to her if she tried to persuade him directly. Luo Qingtong thought about it and suddenly stepped forward. She put her arms around the other party's neck and said with a smile, Chief Instructor, where have you been? Why haven't I seen you for a long time? Fortunately, the other party was the Chief Instructor. Luo Qingtong had already thought of how to make Yi Qianxian stop. His arm was suddenly held in the girl's arms. The soft touch of the girl's body could be clearly felt by Yi Qianxian even through the robe. In an instant, his body stiffened. Then he slowly turned his head and stared at Luo Qingtong with a pair of cold eyes. This woman was actually so intimate with his alias? Not forgetting that he was Yi Luo, Yi Qianxian felt a burst of irritation in his heart. Naturally, he was happy that Luo Qingtong took the initiative. But when he thought that Luo Qingtong didn't know that he was Yi Luo, but was so intimate with him, Yi Qianxian's heart burned. Could it be that she really fell in love with this alias of his? Yi Qianxian's face was full of anger, but his attention was all on Luo Qingtong. And Mo Qianxian was frozen. Mo's legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Not daring to stay here any longer, Mo lowered his head and left with a face full of anger and resentment. Luo Qingtong, Yi Luo. Just you wait. His heart was full of resentment. Yi Qianren did not pay any attention to him. He was just a clown and could be dealt with any time. All his attention was on Luo Qingtong now. Are you worried about me? His tall figure approached the young girl. Just as she was hugging his arm, he pulled her into his embrace and looked down at her. He wanted to see what kind of feelings Luo Qingtong had towards this alias of his. Thinking that Luo Qingtong might have fallen in love with someone else behind his back, even if this person was his alias, he couldn't allow it. Yi Qianxian's heart was irritable to the extreme, but his face remained calm. His tall figure covered Luo Qingtong and pressed her body against the tree next to her. You like me? Yi Qianxian's face darkened. Luo Qingtong's lack of resistance made him even more anxious. As long as this woman didn't want to, no one could force her. She could have many ways to escape or even struggle. Chapter 1041. Yi Qianxian was furious. This woman used to run away from him in the past. But now she was so obedient. How did she fall in love with his alias so quickly? Just because he built a waterfall for her to improve her strength, helped her fight against Su Deheng and the others, and saved her several times? Yi Qianxian was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Hadn't he done more for her than Yi Luo? How could she not see it? Yi Qianxian was so angry that he had completely forgotten that this Yi Luo was himself. He had done all those things for Luo Qingtong. Just as he was about to explode with anger, the girl he had pressed against the tree trunk raised her hand and hugged his neck. She smiled and said, I like it. I like it very much. I like you to death. Luo Qingtong said. She suddenly raised her head and kissed him hard on the lips. Then, before Yi Qianren could fly into a rage, she fell into Yi Qianren's arms with a pft, bending forward and backward as she laughed. Ah, Yi Qianxian, you're jealous of yourself to this extent. No, I'm dying of laughter. I can't take it anymore. Luo Qingtong's eyes glistened with tears. She hugged Yi Qianxian's neck with both hands and hung her entire body on Yi Qianxian. Ah, Luo Qingtong. The veins on Yi Qianxian's forehead bulged. However, the angry roar that could make everyone tremble with fear only provoked Luo Qingtong's even more cheerful and light laughter. Ah, be good, don't be angry. Luo Qingtong smiled and pecked the man's lips. Then she couldn't help but burst out laughing. She didn't want to expose the fact that she had seen through his identity so quickly. But the man's reaction was just too cute. Luo Qingtong couldn't hold it in any longer. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she recalled how Yi Qianxian had asked her if she liked him. This man, was he forcing a confession or extorting a confession? No, she was going to die of laughter. Yi Qianxian hugged the girl who was laughing so hard in his arms that her body couldn't stop sliding down. He immediately freed a hand to hold her buttocks to prevent her from falling. Then he gritted his teeth and asked coldly, when did you find out? No wonder this woman kept teasing him. It turned out that he had already seen through his identity. Yi Qianxian did not know whether he should be happy or angry. He was happy that this woman didn't fall in love with his alias, and all the intimate actions were because she saw through his identity. He was angry that Luo Qingtong clearly knew his identity but didn't say it out. She deliberately teased him and made him sulk for so long. Ah. Luo Qingtong laughed and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. You can't blame me for that. Who told you to hide your identity and tease me? She made a face at Yi Qianxian. I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine. Actually, she just liked to see Yi Qianxian worried about her but also worried about her. Since he hid his identity, she might as well not expose him and have fun with him. Luo Qingtong said and laughed again. Yi Qianxian looked at her happy and proud appearance and couldn't help but block her lips. Chapter 1042. Luo Qingtong's eyes curved. The moment Yi Qianxian kissed her, she kissed him back. Her personality was strong and evil. Even in a kiss, she didn't want to be in a passive position. Yi Qianren sensed her response, and that pair of cold eyes quickly calmed down. The cold air around him also became much softer. After the kiss, Luo Qingtong lazily lay in Yi Qianxian's arms and asked curiously, "Didn't Feng Yu say that you have something to do and won't be back for a while?" Speaking of this, Yi Qianxian's face became slightly cold. He did have something to do. Thinking of Yu Si Huang, who refused to leave the East region, Yi Qianxian's eyes became cold. But when he looked at Luo Qingtong, his eyes quickly softened. Blackfield received the news that someone is investigating my identity and the origin of the Supreme Holy Token, as well as your past. Yi Qianxian's words were concise and comprehensive. Luo Qingtong heard it and knew what was going on. The I he mentioned was definitely not Blackfield's Ming Zun. So, it was this Yi Luo's identity? Someone was investigating him and the origin of the Supreme Holy Token? Interesting. Luo Qingtong's lips curled into a smile. Yi Qianxian's identity as Yi Luo just came to the Holy Academy not long ago, and he almost didn't appear in front of people. The only few times he appeared were for her. Under such circumstances, who would investigate his identity? And even her own affairs were investigated. Luo Qingtong didn't need to think to know who did it. Is it Su Deheng and Mo Qianxian? Only these two people had enough reason and hatred to deal with Yi Qianxian and herself. Yes. Yi Qianxian nodded. If he did not receive this news, he would not have left the matter of dealing with Yu Si Huang and rushed back. Since the other party was investigating him, it meant that they had prepared a big plan to deal with Luo Qingtong. They were afraid that he would ruin their plan, so they wanted to confirm his identity and the origin of the Supreme Holy Token. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to find anything. Yi Qianxian owned the Black Field, but he still managed to find out his identity and alias. That would be an undeserved reputation. You have to be careful. They might be coming for you. Yu Wenma was disabled and Su Jinue was lying on the bed, half human and half ghost. Su Deheng hated Luo Qingtong so much that she would not let her go easily. Yes, I know. Luo Qingtong's eyes curved. She liked the feeling of being cared for and protected by Yi Qianxian. Even if she could handle it herself, Luo Qingtong was still indescribably happy when she saw Yi Qianxian put down his work and rushed over just to worry about her safety. She was getting more and more used to this man's care. She didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. The two of them were chatting happily. At this moment, dong, dong, dong. In the Sacred Institute's Pharmaceutical Institute, bells rang one after another. It was Luo Qingtong and Yu Qingwei's battle was about to begin. Or rather, the battle between the first seat of the Pharmaceutical Institute and Yu Qingwei was about to begin. Because of their special identities, they completely represented the strongest students of the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin. Under such circumstances, the result of the battle between the two naturally attracted the attention of the entire Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin. The instructors of the Medicine Institute had specially arranged for the medicine competition arena in the Medicine Institute for the two of them to make a bet. Chapter 1043. Honestly speaking, the medicinal skills of this young man in the Grand Qin Sacred Academy were all extremely miraculous. But most people had no idea. After all, the formulas that Luo Qingtong gave to the disciples of the Pharmaceutical Institute couldn't be leaked. And the medicinal liquid resources that she refined for those students, even if it was 10% better than those refined by the Qingwei group, didn't mean that her refining skills were superb. It only meant that her refining skills were good. But the other party was recognized as the chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute by the Grand Dean and the teachers of the Pharmaceutical Institute. And the position of the honorary chief meant that even if someone became the new chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute, they wouldn't be able to suppress the other party. With all these reasons, everyone naturally wanted to see this mysterious honorary chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute with their own eyes. Dang dang dang. Hearing the bell, Luo Qingtong remembered that she still had a gambling fight today. If she hadn't made a bet with Mo Qianxian, it wouldn't have mattered if Luo Qingtong didn't go to this gambling fight. Anyway, she wasn't going to make trouble for the Qingwei group anymore. But since she had made a bet with Mo Qianxian, Luo Qingtong had to go. Thinking of this, she immediately informed Yi Qianren and slipped out of the man's embrace. Then, she found a secluded place to change her clothes before leaping towards the medicine competition stage. Dang dang dang. The bell rang louder and louder. At the Pharmaceutical Institute, almost all the students of the Empire of Qin had come. There was a sea of people all around. Everyone was looking at the huge platform in the square. There, Yu Qingwei was already standing on it, but there was no one on the other side. What's that evil doctor doing? The Grand Dean and the others had also come. Except for him and the teachers of the Pharmaceutical Institute, no one knew that the honorary chief of the Pharmaceutical Institute was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. The Grand Dean and the teachers of the Pharmaceutical Institute had agreed to use Luo Qingtong as the trump card of the Pharmaceutical Institute in that event. Of course, they wouldn't expose her so easily. He came with a group of teachers to watch the gambling fight this time to remind Luo Qingtong to take it easy and not be so serious. Keep a low profile. Don't expose yourself too early. But what's going on now? This girl agreed to the gambling fight, but now she wasn't going to come? But didn't she make a bet with Mo Qinshan and the others? Didn't she lose if she didn't come? Could something have happened to that girl? Thinking of this, the Grand Dean immediately sent people to look for her. But when he was about to call for help, he realized that no one else knew who she was. If he sent people to look for her, right? That last must have been delayed by something, right? She had to come quickly. While the Grand Supreme Dean was thinking about this, on the other side, Mo Qinshan appeared at the place where the people of the Dragon Regiment were standing. His Highness. Everyone from the Dragon Group was stunned when they saw him appear with a pale face and cold sweat all over his body. Soon after, someone hurriedly came forward to support him. A member of the Dragon Group asked, "I'm fine." Mo Qinshan gritted his teeth and waved away the hand of the Dragon Regiment member who was about to help him. He couldn't tell his subordinates that he was shrouded in murderous intent and almost peed himself, right? Thinking of Luo Qingtong and Yi Luo, who dared to kill him, Mo Qinshuan's heart was filled with rage. The results of his investigation were about to come out. When he got the news, he would make the two of them suffer. Chapter 1044. When he saw that there was only Yu Qingwei on the stage, he immediately sneered. "That honorary chief disciple, she doesn't dare to come?" he said as he looked at Ma Chenyi and the others who were not far away. "It seems that Luo Qingtong is going to lose. Imperial brother, you have to be a good witness later. I'm just waiting for her huge bet and the bet of running 10 laps around the courtyard." Mo Qinshan said and laughed loudly. Luo Qingtong's indifference when she heard him say those words before was indeed an act. That honorary chief disciple would be scared stiff when he knew that Yu Qingwei was already able to refine elixirs, right? Knowing that she was going to lose, she didn't even dare to come? Mo Qinshan thought and suddenly felt very proud. His laughter was ear-piercing, and those who knew about the bet between him and Luo Qingtong immediately looked over. If that honorary chief disciple didn't come, Luo Qingtong would really lose. Everyone was thinking when suddenly, a voice suddenly came from not far away. "Who said that I didn't dare to come?" Luo Qingtong, wearing a gauze hat, came from not far away. Her face was hidden in that thin layer of transparent gauze, and one could vaguely see the beautiful outline of her. But when one looked carefully, they couldn't see clearly. She came from the entrance of the medicine battle arena, and in a flash she appeared on the high platform of the medicine battle arena. "When I came just now, I heard a mad dog barking, saying that I was going to lose, so I was delayed and came late. I'm very sorry." Luo Qingtong smiled at Yu Qingwei opposite her. Hearing her words, Mo Qinshuan's forehead instantly burst with blue veins. He almost couldn't help but jump up and ask who she called a mad dog. But in the end he forced himself to endure. The other party didn't call out a name. If he jumped out like this, it would only be said that he took the blame. Thinking of this, Mo Qinshan was angry in his heart. He knew that the other party was scolding him, but he couldn't refute at all, let alone reprimand the other party. He was simply suffocating to death. Mo Qinshan looked at the masked girl on the high platform with a livid face. Below the stage, Su Xiaoxiao and the others all knew that it was Luo Qingtong. Seeing that their boss came, they immediately exchanged looks excitedly and all looked at the high platform excitedly. Yuanhu directly shouted, "Yo!" Some people even said that others didn't dare to come. I don't know if it will hurt to be slapped in the face. Only a person who was used to admitting defeat would say something like that, right? She didn't know if the person who spoke had always been as cowardly as he made himself out to be. How many times did he admit defeat? Yuan, whose voice was dripping with sarcasm. Obviously he was targeting Mo Qinshan. However, he learned from Luo Qingtong and did not mention any names. In an instant he was Waziz's. He looked sinisterly at Yuan Hu and the others, and then looked at Luo Qingtong who was on the stage with her face covered. "Humph. It's hard to say whether you can win or not. I'll see how you lose." Yu Qingwei was already able to refine elixir. There was absolutely no doubt about it. Emo Qinshin was not afraid that she would go easy on them. He just wanted to see how Luo Qingtong and the others would lose. Speaking of which, that woman didn't come. Was she with Yi Luo? What a pair of adulterers. Chapter 1045. Take it as a punishment for daring to release killing intent on him. A mere chief instructor, that supreme sacred badge might not even be his own. A fox using the tiger's might to intimidate others and even dared to attack him. Emo Qinshuan's expression was cold and angry, but Luo Qingtong was too lazy to bother with him. She looked at Yu Qingwei and said, "How do you want to compete in this battle?" Yu Qingwei had already walked out from where she was standing. "This battle is only to resolve the grudges between us." She looked up at Luo Qingtong and said, "In that case, let's decide the winner in one go? How about it?" Her goal was not to go against the heavenly demon group, but to resolve the grudges between them. One battle, the winner and loser, was enough. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded. Deciding the winner in one go, that was what she meant. It was too troublesome to win 2 out of 3. Moreover, Luo Qingtong glanced at the Grand Principal, who was constantly winking at her, telling her to keep a low profile and not expose her identity. Her lips twitched. The two reached an agreement and immediately started. Luo Qingtong stood at her position, but did not immediately start refining. Instead, she looked at Yu Qingwei. In front of the girl was a huge cauldron specially used for refining pills. It was like a huge square standing on the high platform. The cauldrons in the medicine battle arena were all specially made, so that the spectators could clearly see the changes in the medicinal properties in the cauldron, eliminating the possibility of cheating. Under Luo Qingtong's gaze, the medicinal properties in the cauldron were constantly merging. Until now, everything that Yu Qingwei had done was the steps of refining pills. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. It was said that Yu Qingwei was already able to refine elixirs, and Luo Qingtong wanted to see how she did it. But she did not expect that the other party had been refining pills all this time. Could it be that she did not intend to use elixirs to decide the winner? If that was the case, then the other party was bound to lose. Luo Qingtong did not intend to go easy on Yu Qingwei. She could let the Yu Qingwei group go after winning. But she could not purposely lose to the other party in a battle. That was disrespect to the opponent. But now Yu Qingwei took the initiative to propose a battle, but was not going to refine elixirs. Was she that confident? Luo Qingtong was thinking. Suddenly, drawl, Yu Qingwei's voice sounded. She stared unblinkingly at the scene in the cauldron. After the medicinal properties had fused to a certain degree, Yu Qingwei's expression turned serious, and she raised her hand to form a seal. Looking at the mark, Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. That was an elixir seal. When Yu Qingwei was Yu Qingwei? What Yu Qingwei had refined was clearly a medicinal liquid, but she had formed a pill seal that was only needed for refining pills. And then, under the control of Yu Qingwei's hand, it slowly fused with the medicinal liquid. Interesting. This was the elixir that Yu Qingwei had refined? Luo Qingtong looked at the elixir, which was slowly fusing and producing miraculous changes, and smiled. Chapter 1046. If an alchemist didn't cultivate to the extreme and grasp the essence of the fusion of medicinal properties, it was impossible to control the combination of the violent medicinal properties and the power of heaven and earth when refining pills. The final result would only be a failure at the last step. Yu Qingwei took a different approach and used the alchemy method to avoid the risk of explosion. The refined medicinal liquid also had the effect in nature of a medicinal pill. It was indeed very clever. However, this wasn't a pill elixir. When Luo Qingtong looked at the pill elixir refined by Yu Qingwei and smiled, everyone below the stage looked at the pill elixir that was gradually taking shape in the cauldron. It had an aura different from ordinary elixirs, and they immediately exclaimed in surprise. Many people saw the refinement of a pill elixir for the first time and didn't expect that it could be refined like this. Senior Sister Yu is really smart. Yes. However, one must be incomparably familiar with the medicinal properties of the elixir and even grasp the essence of it. Otherwise, even if the power of heaven and earth is introduced, there's no way to make it fuse with the elixir. Just this alone proves that Senior Sister Yu's alchemy skills are extremely powerful. It seems that Senior Sister Yu will win for sure this time. Yes. Senior Sister Yu's move is already the pinnacle of alchemy. In the future, when Senior Sister Yu's understanding of medicinal properties is a little deeper, she might become an alchemist. Unless that honorary chief can refine pills, just refining medicinal liquids, even if he can refine a perfect transcendent grade medicinal liquid, He still can't compare to senior sister Qingwei. Yes. Senior sister Qingwei's pill elixir has already transcended the scope of medicinal liquids. Everyone below the stage discussed animatedly, especially those students from the pharmaceutical department. Even if they had received the grace of Luo Qingtong's medicinal liquid formula, their confidence was shaken at this moment. After all, no matter how exquisite Luo Qingtong's alchemy skills were, it was still within the scope of an alchemist. But Yu Qingwei's pill elixir at this moment showed the method of transitioning to alchemy. It was clear at a glance who was better and who was worse. Ah! Seeing that Yu Qingwei really refined the pill elixir, Mo Qinxian burst into laughter. He cast a sidelong glance at Luo Qingtong and sneered, "The pill elixir has already come out. I don't know what other methods the honorary lead disciple has to contend against him. If you don't, then admit defeat as soon as possible. I'm still waiting to collect my winnings." When he said this, he laughed coldly and proudly, waiting for the other party to come down with a face covered in dirt. However, Luo Qingtong didn't even look at him. Senior apprentice sister Qingwei's strength is indeed formidable. However, what senior apprentice sister refined is not pill elixir. Luo Qingtong smiled at Yu Qingwei. Yu Qingwei was indeed very strong. If nothing unexpected happened in the future, she should become an alchemist. However, what she was refining right now could not be considered a pill elixir. Luo Qingtong's words stunned everyone. If what Yu Qingwei refined wasn't called pill elixir, then what was it called? This is clearly a pill elixir. The Qingwei group's people glared at Luo Qingtong. Don't slander our leader just because you can't beat her. Luo Yiran and the others were very angry. They thought that Luo Qingtong said this because she couldn't beat Yu Qingwei and didn't want to let the Qingwei group off easily. This was simply too much. Isn't this honorary lead disciple a bit shameless? Chapter 1047. What do you know? I think she's afraid of losing face as the honorary chief disciple, so she deliberately said that. That's right. Don't compete if you can't afford to lose. I'm speechless. Such a person can also be the honorary chief disciple? Did the grand principal and the rest make a mistake? The crowd below the stage whispered to each other. Su Xiaoxiao and the others glared at them for a while. What are these people talking about? How could boss be the kind of person to slander others? If she said it's not a pill elixir, then it's definitely not a pill elixir. As soon as their words came out, they immediately provoked mocking laughter from all around. If you say it's not a pill elixir, then it's not a pill elixir. That aura is obviously different from the elixir. And we saw it refined with our own eyes. It's fused with the aura of the elixir. How can it not be a pill elixir? That's right. You Heavenly Demon Group people are also quite shameless. I thought you were not bad before, but now it seems that you're also a pile of trash. All kinds of voices came from all around, making Su Xiaoxiao and the rest angry. They knew Luo Qingtong's identity. As the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, Luo Qingtong did not need to use such a dirty method to slander Yu Qingwei. But without Luo Qingtong's permission, they could not casually say the other party's identity, so they could only secretly sulk. 12 However, just as his voice fell. With a swoosh, the thick smoke on the stage dispersed, revealing the scene inside. In an instant, the pride in Mo Qinshuan's eyes froze. The noise and the surroundings also disappeared in an instant. Everyone looked in shock at the golden-colored liquid in the medicine cauldron with a rich aura. Waves of aura were emitted from it, rising and falling along with the fluctuations of the liquid. A burst of indescribable, refreshing and pleasant medicinal fragrance spread out in all directions. Everyone smelled this aura and looked at the pill elixir refined by Yu Qingwei not far away. They immediately felt the huge difference in it. Even Mo Qinshan and the others, who harbored the greatest malice and wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong and the others, when they looked at the comparison between the two liquids, they had to admit that in comparison, the liquid refined by the honorary chief disciple could be called a real elixir. If one were to say that Yu Qingwei's pill elixir contained the aura of a pill, then Yu Qingwei's pill elixir could be said to be a medicinal elixir. Then what Luo Qingtong refined was like the liquid form of a real medicinal pill. The difference was so great that no one could go against their conscience and say that Yu Qingwei's was better than Luo Qingtong's. What the latter refined was true pill elixir. Everyone looked at the cauldron in front of Luo Qingtong. Only now did they understand why she had said that what Yu Qingwei refined wasn't pill elixir. The difference between the two was simply too great. But how did Luo Qingtong do it? Everyone was shocked. Even the students of the Sacred Institute who didn't know anything about alchemy knew that once the refinement process started, it was either a success or a failure. If it succeeded, it would become a pill, and if it failed, it would become a waste. The loud sound on the stage just now was clearly the sign of a cauldron explosion. Why wasn't the cauldron in front of the other party destroyed, but instead refined pill elixir? And the aura in it was already no different from a real medicinal pill. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. As for the Grand Dean and the head of the Medicine Institute, they were also shocked. Chapter 1048. I got it. His eyes flickered as he looked at Luo Qingtong, who was on the high platform. His eyes were filled with surprise. You didn't fail. That loud sound just now wasn't a furnace explosion. The Medicine Institute's master spoke frankly, as if he had discovered a new continent. He looked at Luo Qingtong with amazement. You were refining the elixir just now. That loud sound was the sign of your success. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said with certainty, I've read in ancient books that there was a transitional process before an alchemist became an alchemist, and that was to refine a semi-finished elixir. I thought that the semi-finished elixir was refined by Qingwei, and the elixir's aura was integrated into the elixir. But now it seems that it wasn't like that at all. Instead, during the refining process, she omitted the final step of condensing the elixir. The elixir refined like that is the real elixir. Because condensing the elixir is the most important process in refining elixirs. After successfully condensing the elixir and going through the baptism of heaven and earth, it can be called a real elixir. And when an ordinary alchemist becomes an alchemist, this is the most difficult thing to control. I was wrong. I thought it was the fusion of heaven and earth energy with the elixir. As soon as the Medicine Institute's master spoke, everyone knew what was going on with the elixir Luo Qingtong refined. No wonder the other party's elixir's aura smelled no different from a real elixir. That was because the elixir she refined was only one step away from completely forming the elixir. What was a real quasi-alchemist? This was a real quasi-alchemist. She was only one step away from successfully refining the elixir. Everyone was shocked. Only now did they know how powerful Luo Qingtong's alchemy skills were. Yu Qingwei had only grasped a little bit of alchemy. But Luo Qingtong had already grasped more than half of the alchemy ability. Just by looking at this comparison, it was clear who was more powerful between the two. While they were overwhelmed with shock, they did not know that the shock in the hearts of the elders of the Medicine Institution and the Grand Supreme Headmaster was even more intense than theirs. One had to know that they knew Luo Qingtong's identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and that she was an alchemist. Under such circumstances, how the hell was she going to transition? She didn't have this transition process. Therefore, if Luo Qingtong wanted to refine the elixir, she could only crush the elixir the moment it was formed. Waste pills turned into liquid. The alchemy prowess displayed here was astonishing. Even those old monstrous alchemy grandmasters wouldn't be able to do this, right? One had to know that in the process of refining pills, the slightest mistake would result in the entire pill being scrapped. Who would dare to play like Luo Qingtong? If word of her actions were to spread, it would be extremely frightening and unbelievable. The two of them were deeply frightened. Then he was pleasantly surprised. Luo Qingtong's alchemy skills were too frightening. As long as she was here, there the Empire of Qin's holy institution's alchemy prowess would be unparalleled. In that event, they would definitely amaze the world and wipe away their previous humiliation. The two of them were pleasantly surprised, but the rest of the Qingwei group were only frightened. Now that Yu Qingwei had lost, their plan to write off their grudges with the Heavenly Demon Group had failed. Thinking that the other party would be punished by the Heavenly Demon Group for them, the group immediately knelt down and said to Luo Qingtong on the high platform. Chapter 1049. They were going to plead with Luo Qingtong, but the girl was not here, so they could only plead with the honorary chief of the pharmaceutical department. Since the other party stood up for the Heavenly Evil Group, she must have a good personal relationship with Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong should listen to her. No one doubted that the mysterious honorary chief of the pharmaceutical department was Luo Qingtong. In the eyes of the crowd, Luo Qingtong came from a low-level country, and it was already a blessing for her to have such talent and strength. How could she have such powerful alchemy skills? Their deep-rooted thinking made them never think that the other party was Luo Qingtong. Yes. Luo Qingtong looked at them and nodded. She did not intend to pursue the Qingwei group. It was just right that she agreed to their pleading. She just needed to ask them to apologize. With this thought, Luo Qingtong immediately left. When the crowd in the medicine battle arena recovered from the shock, the masked girl was no longer on the high platform. They were enthusiastically discussing the other party's identity, and where did the Grand Principal find this genius? The Grand Principal and the Grand Principal of the pharmaceutical department were also surrounded. But they kept their mouths shut and no one asked. The instructors and students of the pharmaceutical department were dying of curiosity. At this moment, Luo Qingtong, who had finished changing, reappeared in the medicine battle arena. She stopped Mo Qinxian and the others, who were pale and wanted to leave the medicine battle arena when no one was paying attention. Your Highness King Wu is in such a hurry, where do you want to go? Could it be that you can't wait to fulfill the bet? Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, and the crowd, who were immersed in the atmosphere of joy, surprise and shock, suddenly looked over. They saw Mo Qinxian, whose face was ugly, being stopped by Luo Qingtong at the entrance of the medicine battle arena. Only then did the crowd remember that there was a bet between them. Oh my God! There was a good show to watch. Thinking of the bet between Luo Qingtong and Mo Qinxian, everyone gathered around excitedly. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Mo Qinxian's face darkened. Luo Qingtong, don't go too far. He gritted his teeth and spat out each word. He thought that since the girl hadn't come, he could leave quietly. At that time, when Luo Qingtong and the others came to ask to fulfill the bet, he could make an excuse and say that he wasn't here. In this way this bet would naturally be over. But he didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would rush over at this time and block him at the gate. This made him extremely embarrassed. Was this woman doing this on purpose? In fact, Luo Qingtong did it on purpose. She had just arrived and saw that Mo Qinxian and the others were about to leave when Su Xiaoxiao and the others were not paying attention, so she deliberately waited for him at the gate. Didn't she catch him at the right time? Your Highness, you must be joking. Luo Qingtong looked at Mo Qinxian indifferently, and the smile on her lips was indescribably evil. She raised her head slightly and looked at him casually with a smile. I didn't propose the bet. I didn't set up this bet. How can this be me going too far? Or is it that you can force me to fulfill the bet, but it's wrong for me to let you fulfill the bet? There's no such logic in this world, right? As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, everyone instantly remembered Mo Qinxian's arrogance when he thought that Yu Qingwei was going to win. Chapter 1050. Under such circumstances, he said that Luo Qingtong had gone overboard. This was a bit of a distortion of the truth and it was inexcusable. What was more, this bet was indeed set by Mo Qinxian himself. The content of the bet was also set by him. How did it become that Luo Qingtong had gone overboard? He was not forced to bet by others. Everyone thought so, and suddenly looked at Mo Qinxian with indescribable contempt. Although they did not dare to do so blatantly because of the latter's identity, the meaning in their eyes was very obvious. It seems that His Highness King Wu wants to go back on his words. Yes, he is so shameless. He was so proud and arrogant just now. Yes. He wants to run away after losing, but he is so arrogant after winning. Whispers could be heard from all around. Mo Qinxian listened with an indescribable look on his face. At this moment, Ma Qinye's voice sounded. Brother, it is said that one must accept defeat. I'm afraid it's not good for you to do this, right? The handsome and elegant young man walked out of the crowd with his hands behind his back, followed by a group of people from the Guiyuan group. He looked at Mo Qinxian, who looked terrible, and said with a faint smile, I will be the witness of this matter. If you don't want to fulfill the bet and want to go back on your words, then I will have to enforce it. I'm afraid you don't want to see such a result, do you? He looked at Mo Qinxian with a faint smile, but the threat and coldness in his words were very obvious. Ma Qinyi would definitely not mind helping Mo Qinxian fulfill the bet, and he would feel more comfortable by then. Mo Qinxian obviously knew this. If he really let Ma Qinyi do it, he was afraid that he would suffer more humiliation than now. With his identity as King Wu, others did not dare to do anything to him, but Ma Qinyi did not have any scruples. Thinking of this, he suddenly gritted his teeth angrily and said, I will fulfill the bet. As soon as these words came out, Mo Qinxian almost broke his teeth. Thinking of how humiliating the bet he made with Luo Qingtong was, he was so angry that his blood rushed to his brain, and he almost fainted to the ground. But Mo Qinxian knew that even if he fainted, Luo Qingtong and the others would wake him up and ask him to fulfill the bet. These two be asterisk cheese. Ma Qinyi, it won't be long before you die a horrible death. And that bitch Luo Qingtong. Mo Qinxian was angry and resentful, but he had to take action. For a moment, the words, I may be asterisk tish resounded in every corner of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Mo Qinxian almost vomited blood and fell to the ground several times while running. he gritted his teeth and persevered. However, when he finished running 10 laps and the whole Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin almost knew, he was *TCH. The people sent by Ma Qingyi to collect the debt for Luo Qingtong arrived. At this time, Mo Qinshin remembered that in addition to the humiliating bet with Luo Qingtong, he also bet a large sum of money with the other party. He bet the whole fortune of the King Wu's mansion, thinking that he could cheat Luo Qingtong and the others. But unexpectedly Yu Qingwei lost. He was facing a huge amount of money. Thinking of the gambling odds he set, Mo Qinshin was so angry that he could no longer control the surging aura in his body. In an instant he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Luo Qingtong did not stay in the drug battlefield for long. Chapter 1051. She believed that the other party would naturally teach Mo Qinshin a lesson. It was better to leave it to him than to leave it to anyone else. It was the truth. For the sake of that bet, Mo Qinshin almost tore down the entire martial imperial mansion. But he couldn't do anything about it. Mo Qinshin was so angry that he almost vomited blood. At this moment Tong Hu and the others came back. "Your Highness, this is the information you wanted." A group of people respectfully handed over the information they had received. Mo Qinshin opened it with a gloomy face and then sneered. Good. Good. He cheered. "It's just as the master of the Soul Institute said." He sneered and said, "Send this news to the master of the Soul Institute. I want Luo Qingtong and the others to be consigned to eternal damnation." Mo Qinshin had found out that Luo Qingtong didn't have any ice soul imprint talent. She was just an ordinary martial artist. How could a martial artist use Yuanma's soul skill? Like Su Deheng said, Yuanma must have used a forbidden and evil sorcery. Just this point alone was enough to consign Luo Qingtong to eternal damnation. At that time, the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy and even the Holy Dynasty of the Empire of Qin would not tolerate her. At that time he would teach her a lesson. Mo Qinshuan's face was cold. He was really screwed over by Luo Qingtong this time. The entire martial imperial manor was almost an empty shell. Not only that, but it also became the laughing stock of the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy. The news of him running 10 laps around the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin and shouting that he was a *TCH spread out from the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. It almost spread throughout the entire holy capital of the Empire of Qin. When Mo Qinshin went out now, he felt that everyone he met was laughing at him. He was going to be the crown prince of the Empire of Qin and the ruler of the Holy Dynasty in the future, but he had to bear such a stain. He would become the laughing stock of others for the rest of his life. Even if the other party feared him because of his power and status, they could still laugh at him without restraint in private and in their hearts. Thinking of this, Mo Qinshin wished he could eat Luo Qingtong alive. He didn't think that it was because he wanted to plot against Luo Qingtong that he ended up in this state. He would only think that the other party was being disrespectful to him. Mo Qinshuan's eyes were gloomy and cold. After sending the message to Su Deheng, he smiled gloomily. "Luo Qingtong, I'll make you wish you were dead this time." Previously he had wanted to use Su Deheng to force evil Dr. Ghost Eye to make a move, then think of a way to get the other party to play in his backyard. Even now he would still do the same. However, after playing with that bitch for a bit, she would be thrown into a brothel. She had caused him to suffer such heavy losses. Naturally he had to make it up to her. As for Ma Qingyi, Mo Qinshin sneered. Luo Qingtong's incident this time was really an excellent breakthrough point. He didn't need to wait until the future. Perhaps he could pull him down in one fell swoop. At that time, the Empire of Qin and the Holy Dynasty would be under his control. Without Ma Qingyi, who in the royal family would be able to compete with him? When he became the crown prince, and with the help of that grand event, he would enter the realm of his dreams. By then the old man sitting on the dragon throne would have to give up his position. Thinking of what he had done to the emperor of the Empire of Qin, Mo Qinshin laughed loudly and was very proud of himself. At the same time, in the residence of the Soul Institute Master in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Chapter 1052. The aura of the noble woman was not weaker than that of Su Deheng. She had an extraordinary aura. Her entire body, including her red hairpin and jade bracelet, seemed to be a very powerful spiritual weapon. "Jinyue, my daughter." The noble woman was lying at the head of Su Jinyue's bed. She looked at Su Jinyue, who was neither a human nor a ghost, with a sorrowful expression. "What's going on?" After crying for a while, she turned around and looked at Su Deheng, who was standing behind her with a dejected look. She said angrily, "My daughter was fine when I left. How did she become like this?" "Su Deheng, is this how you take care of my daughter?" She looked furious. Who on earth did this to her? Shin Shuyue did not expect that her daughter would become like this after she was summoned back to the Celestial Palace. Su Jinue grew up in the palm of her hand. She gave her everything she wanted and spoiled her to the extreme. But today someone made her look like a ghost. When Shin Shuyue came back, she almost thought that she had seen a demon at first glance. If it weren't for Su Deheng holding her back, she would have slapped her daughter to death with a slap. As the external deacon of the Celestial Palace, she was quite respected in the 4 great holy dynasties. Even if she went to the other 3 holy dynasties, the experts there had to be respectful to her when they heard of her identity. Now that her daughter had become like this, how could she bear it? Shin Chuyue's face was furious. Her gorgeous face, which was like a hibiscus in autumn, now looked like a ghost. "I suspect that it's Luo Qingtong." Su Deheng's face was as gloomy as hers. He and Shin Chuyue doted on their daughter. Even if Su Jinue broke the sky, they would be there to support her. Now that she had become like this, how could he not be heartbroken? He told her about his conjectures and the recent happenings. Shin Chuyue's face became more and more furious. That Luo Qingtong is so arrogant? Shin Chuyue did not expect that not only was her daughter bullied, but her husband was also humiliated. And the Grand Dean and the others were still helping her. When she heard this, she could no longer bear it. She stood up and said, "I'm going to waste her now. Let's see what Zhu Feng can do to me." Her face was gloomy. Zhu Feng was the name of the Grand Dean. Shin Chuyue called him by his name as if she did not put him in her eyes. In fact, it was the Celestial Palace she came from was a sect in the hidden world, and its ranking wasn't weak. Of the Celestial Palace, Shin Chuyue was an outer court deacon, and she had only killed a student of the Great Qin Sacred Academy. She didn't believe that the Grand Principal would dare to do anything to her. However, as soon as she got up, she was stopped by Su Deheng. "No." Su Deheng shook his head. "Zhu Feng and Ma Chenyi are not obstacles to us. But that Luo Qingtong is said to be related to evil Dr. Ghost Eye. You also know that behind evil Dr. Ghost Eye is the Blackfield's underworld venerable. We must have a good reason to deal with her. Furthermore, my daughter's appearance, which is neither human nor ghost, is very likely caused by that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Even if it's not, we can only ask him for help if we want to cure her. We can't touch Luo Qingtong now." Chapter 1053. If it weren't for his daughter and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he wouldn't have stopped Shin Chuyue. In fact, in his opinion, if Luo Qingtong hadn't entered the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, maybe nothing would have happened to them. Even if the human-faced ghost sore on Su Jinue's body wasn't caused by her, it should have been caused by her anger. Not to mention the humiliation he suffered and Yu Wenma's crippling. All of these made Su Deheng wish he could kill Luo Qing immediately. Blackfield's Ming Zun? Shin Chuyue was still angry, and she had a feeling that Su Deheng wouldn't give up no matter what he said. However, when she heard the words Blackfield's Ming Zun, her body instantly froze. Shin Chuyue relied on her identity as an outer elder of Celestial Palace to look down on most of the powerhouses of True Spill Continent. But only the Blackfield's Ming Zun, Celestial Palace, and even many sects in the hidden world didn't dare to provoke him. When she heard the name of Yi Qianxian, her aggressive attitude suddenly weakened. "So, we can only let that little bitch be arrogant?" She felt a burst of hatred in her heart. Su Deheng was about to say something when suddenly Tong Hu and the others asked to see him. Su Deheng let them in. After hearing their intentions, he took the message from them. After he finished reading, his eyes lit up. "Okay." After sending Tong Hu and the others away, Su Deheng laughed and looked at Shin Chuyue. "Madam, we have a reason to deal with that little bitch now," he said, and told Shin Chuyue the content of the message sent by Mo Qinxian. Then he said to her, "This time we will force her into a desperate situation. Let her ask the evil Dr. Ghost Eye to save her daughter." Su Deheng said coldly. Shin Chuyue glared at him and said, "It's rare that we have something on her, of course we have to kill her. You're really old and muddle-headed. Since she has a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, we can force her to let the evil Dr. Ghost Eye treat our daughter. Who knows what he will do to our daughter? Not to mention, you said that the evil Dr. Ghost Eye is backed by the Blackfield's Ming Zun. If she asks him to help her with the Blackfield's Ming Zun, What could happen to Luo Qingtong? Shen Chuyue's Ming Zun. While? It just so happens that in these 2 days, my sect's outer sect elder Xia will be coming. When the time comes, I'll ask him to help me mediate and invite the evil Dr. Ghost Eye from the Black Field to treat our daughter's poison. This way, by the time she knows that something happened to Luo Qingtong and wants to avenge her, it will already be too late. Not to mention, she might not even help Luo Qingtong. After all, who knows if Luo Qingtong is her subordinate? If that's the case, the other party might not offend us for her, Shen Chuyue said confidently. Su Deheng heard this and seemed to agree with her. Then we won't let Luo Qingtong go? We won't let her go, Shen Chuyue said viciously. She caused our daughter to be like this and your precious disciple. Don't you want to avenge them? When she said this, Su Deheng nodded fiercely. Okay, we'll do as you say. Chapter 1054. Luo Qingtong didn't know this yet. She was taking a stack of things from Yi Qianxian at the moment. What are these? Luo Qingtong blinked and looked at these things in front of her. Aren't you going to deal with Mo Qinxian recently? These are things that are useful to you, Yi Qianmin said as she gently stroked her hair. Her eyes were filled with indifference. He wanted to kill Mo Qinxian last time. But Luo Qingtong stopped him and didn't let him do it. He knew that this woman must be useful to Mo Qinxian. In this case, he helped her to collect some things from Mo Qinxuan's power, so that she could use them when she wanted to kill him. Oh. Luo Qingtong responded and then looked through these things. The more she looked, the brighter her eyes became. When she saw that Mo Qinxian even killed the holy emperor of the Empire of Qin and did something to him, Luo Qingtong suddenly jumped up from the chair and threw herself on the man who was sitting lazily on the couch. Ah! With these materials, it's much easier to deal with Mo Qinxian. My lord, you are so nice. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed, and she laughed so hard that her eyes could not be seen. It involved many secrets of the royal family of the Empire of Qin. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong might not be able to find it out. Mo Qinxian was the king of martial arts of the Empire of Qin, and he was known as the first person after Ma Qinyi. Over the years, some people had regarded him as the candidate to replace the crown prince of Ma Qinyi in the future. Under such circumstances, it was still a little difficult for Luo Qingtong to kill him. Now that Yi Qianren had made a move, everything was resolved. Luo Qingtong kissed Yi Qianxian on the lips. Seeing her action, Yi Qianxian's cold eyes, which seemed to contain countless blood swords, suddenly narrowed. He tilted his head and kissed the girl's lips. After kissing for a while, he snorted in a low and hoarse voice, "Since I am so nice, why don't you give yourself to me?" This woman only knew how to coax him with sweet words. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly and then she said, "Okay," she said with a smile. Yi Qianming's hand that was staring at her suddenly froze. Then she abruptly turned around to look at her. "What did you say?" "I said give yourself to me." "Okay," Luo Qingtong said with a smile. "Calm." Before Yi Qianxian could show his happiness, the girl took out the little pig from her sleeve and stuffed it into his arms. "Okay. Use this to give yourself to me." Yi Qianxian snorted and threw the little pig away. "I'm not interested in its body." Luo Qingtong had already died of laughter. She laughed so hard that she fell into Yi Qianxian's arms. Her clear eyes, which were rippling with a faint mist of blood, were soaked with tears as if they had been washed by water. Her feather-like eyelashes were covered with fine droplets of water, and she looked indescribably cute. Luo Qingtong couldn't stop laughing. She laughed and wiped her tears. "Pork is very good, okay? You still dislike it? My family's Humji is a divine pig." Divine pig Humji, who ran far away while howling, "Please, you must dislike it." Yi Qianxian looked at her complacent smile and couldn't help but grind his teeth. He lowered his head and nibbled on her lips. Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and nibbled back. The two of them laughed together. Chapter 1055. She was no match for this man at all. If he didn't go easy on her, she would be suppressed in a short while. It wasn't fun at all. Luo Qingtong, who didn't gain the upper hand, lay in Yi Qianxian's arms. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and raised her hand to take his pulse. Yi Qianxian subconsciously blocked her hand, but the girl turned her wrist and avoided it. Luo Qingtong might not be as strong as Yi Qianxian in terms of strength, but in terms of technique and dodging she was much stronger. After avoiding Yi Qianxian's hand, she took the man's wrist that was exposed outside his sleeve. "Let me take a look at your body's condition." This man always showed a very valiant side in front of her. So much so that Luo Qingtong almost forgot that this man's body actually had an extremely serious hidden danger. Normally, when facing her and begging her to save their lives, they would always remind her of their own condition. However, this man didn't say anything, but he was so valiant that it was difficult to detect the weakness in his body. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately rolled her eyes at Yi Qianxian. Last time, he didn't let her take a look at him because he was afraid that it would affect her cultivation and make her foundation unstable. This time he did it again. She had already advanced to the martial emperor realm and her realm was temporarily stable. If she didn't take a look now, when would she delay it? The moment Luo Qingtong grabbed Yi Qianxian's wrist, he gave up resisting and withdrew all the strength in his body. Otherwise, if he resisted, it would be easy to injure the girl holding his wrist. Luo Qingtong opened her blood-red eyes. When her aura entered Yi Qianxian's body, she also used her eye technique to check his body. The data of this man's body was still so inhuman. The data of his meridians was still so pitiful. Luo Qingtong took a look and found that the data of his meridians was so weak that it almost fell to the single digits. She immediately frowned and poured her aura into his meridians. Repair. Luo Qingtong's pupil technique flickered. After she had broken through to the martial emperor realm, the mental strength in her body had increased once again. Her pupil special ability had been awakened once again, and she had unlocked a new pupil special ability, Repair. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes stared at the incomplete product. Under the influence of her eye technique, the incomplete product would be repaired in her mind. Of course, this kind of completion was done subconsciously. It wasn't really something that was only half left. After Luo Qingtong glanced at it, it became complete. It just became complete in Luo Qingtong's mind. After using this eye technique, a diagram of the man's meridians appeared in Luo Qingtong's mind. The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered violently, and the numbers on the meridian diagram in her mind were quickly filled up. Luo Qingtong demonstrated how to repair the man's meridians in her mind. She wanted to see what his meridians looked like when he was at his peak, and then compared it with his current situation to see where the problem was. However, the numbers on the meridian diagram in Luo Qingtong's mind only jumped twice. In an instant, with a bang, the blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly extinguished. Her vision went black and a sharp pain and dizziness hit her. In an instant, her body leaned back and fell backwards. Qingtong. Seeing her fall backwards, Yi Qianxian's eyes instantly shrank. He raised his hand and pulled her into his arms, not letting her fall backwards to the ground. "What's wrong with you?" Chapter 1056. I just overused my mental strength. Everything in front of her was pitch black. She had used her eye technique too much, causing her to temporarily lose her sight. Yi Qianren also noticed the strange look in her eyes. He narrowed his eyes slightly and raised his hand to gently caress the corner of her eyes. "You can't see." His voice was low, slightly hoarse and mesmerizing. It's nothing. I'll be fine in a while." Luo Qingtong didn't hide the abnormality in her eyes in front of him. If it were anyone else, she definitely wouldn't let them discover the secret of her eye technique. But Yi Qianxian was different. She had already exposed most of her secrets to this man. And after spending so much time together, she was already used to trusting him. If he wanted to harm her, he wouldn't have waited until now. Yi Qianxian nodded and didn't ask any more questions. But he didn't let go of Luo Qingtong's hand. Instead, he tightened his grip on her hand. He had long known that her eyes were different from ordinary people's. They seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. Luo Qingtong's various amazing abilities seemed to come from her eyes. This woman had many secrets. But so what? Just like how his heavenly vein body was different from others, what was so strange about her having her own unique abilities? But this woman's abilities were a bit too coveted. Spirit Array Master, Alchemist, Weapon Refiner, as long as it was something that could be seen through with her eyes, she could do it with ease. If others knew about her abilities, she would probably be captured by those large sects and sacred grounds and raised in captivity. She would live a life of imprisonment like a puppet. She would neither live nor die, living like a tool. This was something Yi Qianxian couldn't tolerate. He had to protect this woman firmly. Let her fly freely under his wings without any scruples. Luo Qi become a bit stronger. Yi Qianxian gently stroked the girl's smooth face and said in a low voice. That deep voice seemed to drill into Luo Qingtong's ears and into her heart. Only if this woman became stronger could he eliminate the hidden dangers in his body. Only then would he be able to protect her better. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. She also felt that she was too weak compared to Yi Qianxian. She had thought that being a martial emperor would be enough for her to probe the other party's body. However, she had not expected that she would exhaust her mental strength as soon as she started probing. This man was truly a pervert. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and poked the man's chest. In the past, it was always others who called her a pervert. Now it was her turn to scold this man. However, Luo Qingtong was never one to admit defeat. The stronger Yi Qianxian became, the more motivated she became. Sooner or later, she would crush this man under her body. Luo Qingtong muttered to herself as she looked at Yi Qianxian's devilishly handsome face. Her eyesight had already recovered. Don't poke randomly. Yi Qianxian groaned as he grabbed Luo Qingtong's small hands that were randomly poking his chest. Did this woman know that this was ***? She had just poked the 2 points on his chest several times. Yi Qianxian was afraid that if he didn't grab her now, he wouldn't be able to hold himself back. Don't play with fire, he said in a hoarse voice. Otherwise, don't blame this sovereign for forcing you. Did this woman really think that he was Lu Xiaohui? She wanted to try poking him again. Chapter 1057. You'll have to be able to catch me first. She laughed. There was a hint of arrogance in her innocence, and an indescribable charm in her wickedness. Especially that pair of bright and colorful eyes, which gave people an indescribable feeling of intelligence and dazzling as they turned craftily. It made her look very charming. Why don't you try? Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong like this, and his eyes instantly darkened. The emotions inside were surging, more turbulent than before, and undercurrents were surging. He didn't mind if she gave him a chance to make a move. When he caught her, he would never stop. Then forget it. Luo Qingtong looked at him, and her pair of claws, which were held by the man, were indescribably restless. Her unyielding character made her want to continue poking. However, Yi Qianxian's words were too threatening. Luo Qingtong felt the man's unblinking gaze on her. She thought for a moment. Yi Qianxian was all on her now. If he poked her, there would be no chance for her to escape. Thinking of this, she immediately gave up. A wise woman submits to circumstances. She smiled and held the man's hand, saying, "Come on, business is more important. I'll continue to look at your meridians." Yi Qianxian was amused by her crafty look. He knew that this woman wouldn't dare. Cunning. He snorted and pulled her into his arms. His action was overbearing and gentle. See. He snorted and lowered his head, kissing the girl fiercely. Then he restrained himself and let her go. Luo Qingtong responded to him with a smile, not hiding her little thoughts and cunning at all. Anyway, in front of this man, her nature had been exposed. So what if she was scared? So what if she only knew how to take advantage of him? Luo Qingtong smiled and transferred the aura in her body into Yi Qianxian's body. This time, she didn't use her ocular ability to restore the man's meridian map like before. Yi Qianxian was too strong. She didn't have enough mental strength to restore his full strength, so she might as well save her energy for something else. Luo Qingtong's aura circulated in his body, just like what she had done to Yi Qianxian in the past. At the same time, she activated her ocular sorcery, which had recovered, and watched as her power flowed through the man's body. Under Luo Qingtong's eye technique, she saw the power she had transferred into the man's body move around in his body and seep into his meridians. Then, another wave of energy came out from it and flowed into her aura. Luo Qingtong snorted softly. When the energy returned to her body after a cycle, she stopped it. What's wrong? Yi Qianxian raised his eyebrows as he looked at her and stopped checking his body. Something's wrong. Luo Qingtong told Yi Qianxian what she had just checked. Before me, did anyone check your body and find something like this? No. Yi Qianxian said straightforwardly. The drawbacks of the heavenly vein body were obvious. It wasn't that no one had checked his body to find an opportunity to extend his life. But without exception, no one had found anything. Only Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianren lowered her head to take a look at her own body. She could clearly feel that her meridians had become stronger. Chapter 1058. That's strange. Luo Qingtong knitted her eyebrows. If only her aura had an effect, then it meant that there was something in her aura that Yi Qianxian's meridians needed? Wait a minute. Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly lit up. Tian Mingzi said before that I have an innate mixed element body, does this have anything to do with it? She looked at the man in front of her, her expression full of hope. If this was the reason, then Yi Qianxian could find another innate mixed element body. Her strength alone wasn't enough to restore a man's meridians. But if there were a few more people, then it wouldn't be a problem. Luo Qingtong thought and guessed, could it be because I have an innate mixed element body that can absorb all the power in the world, so after my aura circulated in your body, it absorbed some of your aura? Then this aura was assimilated by my aura, and when it entered your body, it was mistaken for your own aura and then absorbed back, strengthening the meridians in your body? She thought that this was the only reason that made sense. But she just didn't know if this innate mixed element body was easy to find in this different world. In fact, Luo Qingtong didn't know if this body came from the original owner or from herself. If it was because of the injection of her soul that caused the original owner's body to change and become the same as her previous life, then it would be troublesome. Because Luo Qingtong didn't care about anything in her previous life, she could learn it as soon as she learned it. Although she was ranked first in the ability world, her strength wasn't limited to eye techniques. She had practiced all kinds of martial arts without any hindrance. In fact, if it wasn't for the lack of spiritual energy on Earth in the 24th century, Luo Qingtong might have been able to cultivate successfully. This was also the reason why Luo Qingtong was quickly familiar with the power system and martial arts cultivation here after transmigrating to this different world. Otherwise, even with the eye technique, she wouldn't have been able to immediately use the original owner's power to kill all the black-clothed people when she transmigrated. That shouldn't be the reason, Yi Qianxian said in a low voice. If that's the case, then storing the energy in my body and transferring it back to my body, wouldn't it strengthen my meridians? But in reality, he looked at the beautiful girl in front of him with sparkling eyes. The strength of my meridians has always been weakening. He looked at Luo Qingtong and nodded slightly. In this world, the one who wants me dead is the heavenly Tao. Therefore, what Luo Qingtong said about his power being assimilated after entering her body and then being absorbed by his own power to repair his meridians was impossible. Otherwise, with the strength of his heavenly veins body, how could his meridians be so weak? Therefore, Luo Qingtong's power was able to repair his meridians. There must be other reasons. Heavenly Tao. When Luo Qingtong heard him say this, she remembered the special nature of Yi Qianxian's heavenly veins body. Before, she subconsciously treated Yi Qianxian's condition as a general difficult disease to treat. But in fact, Yi Qianxian's condition wasn't an illness. She was able to repair his meridians not because of her medical skills. It was because of another reason. Luo Qingtong thought so and frowned. Apart from her innate mixed yuan body, was there anything special in her body that Yi Qianxian needed? Chapter 1059. Luo Qingtong shook her head as she thought of this. Her Dou technique was an auxiliary ability, which had nothing to do with the power in her body. This shouldn't be the reason. Luo Qingtong couldn't think of anything, so she could only give up in the end. It couldn't be because her power was more delicious than Yi Qianxian's, so the way of heaven absorbed her power and let go of Yi Qianxian's meridians, right? She curled her lips as she thought of this and then suddenly froze. Wait. The way of heaven absorbed her power, but it didn't absorb Yi Qianxian's? Luo Qingtong carefully recalled this sentence that suddenly appeared in her mind, and she seemed to think of something. If the way of heaven could absorb her power, it wouldn't absorb Yi Qianxian's. Then could they find a way to replace it with something else? Luo Qingtong thought of this, and in an instant, a certain thought in her mind became clearer. Yi Qianxian was the same as her. Maybe he also went astray on this matter. She remembered that the man had told her before that except for her, other people's power had no effect on the meridians in his body. But if he didn't have the power of people, what about the power of things? Luo Qingtong thought of this, and in an instant, the light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. She suddenly threw herself into Yi Qianxian's arms and said happily, "I got it." She told him all her thoughts and then said to the man, "You've tried countless ways. Have you tried to guide the power of some kind of treasure into your body to see if it can weaken the weakening of your meridians by the way of heaven?" After hearing her thoughts, Yi Qianxian was also thoughtful for a while. Then he shook his head and said, "No." He used to treat the weakening of his meridians as a kind of disease. He relied on the power of the medicinal liquid to temporarily repair and stabilize the strength of his meridians. But as he became stronger and stronger over the years, those medicinal liquids were no longer useful. Elder Yu was also helpless. Now that he heard Luo Qingtong's idea, he felt that he might be able to give it a try. Luo Qingtong also had the same idea. She nodded seriously and said, "Go and collect some treasures related to the power of the heavenly Tao. Who knows, maybe one of their powers can counteract the power of the heavenly Tao that is weakening you?" The weakening of Yi Qianxian's heavenly vein physique came from the mysterious influence of the heavenly Tao. Since his power was effective against him, perhaps those treasures would be effective as well. Even if he could not completely cure the hidden danger of the man's meridians constantly weakening, he could try his best to prolong and reduce the heavenly Tao's influence on him. "Yes, I'll give it a try then." Yi Qianxian nodded. Indeed, he had never thought of such a method before. Once he was done with the matters here, he would return to the other side to collect such treasures. Haha. Luo Qingtong laughed happily. If this method really worked on Yi Qianxian, that would be great. In this way, the hidden danger in the man's body could be controlled to a certain extent. Once his strength increased in the future, he could specifically help him investigate and see what exactly was in his body that affected his meridians. Then he could prescribe the right medicine and completely solve the hidden danger in his body. Luo Qingtong thought like this, and suddenly her heart was greatly shaken. She continued to pour her aura into Yi Qianxian's body, circulating it in his meridians. Both of their auras were slowly changing and strengthening. Chapter 1060. His aura overflowed like a gentle breeze, blowing his and Luo Qingtong's sleeves and hair. Inside the room, it was as if they were outside in the courtyard. While Luo Qingtong was in this cycle, the man's aura constantly mixed with her aura and surged into her body, causing the aura in her body to constantly rise. However, her current cultivation was not as weak as before. When Yi Qianxian's aura entered her body, it was no longer uncontrollable like before, soaring like a rocket. This made Luo Qingtong feel a lot more relieved. The two of them were busy in the room for most of the day. When Luo Qingtong's aura no longer had any effect on Yi Qianxian's meridians, Luo Qingtong's strength had entered the level of a low-level martial emperor in this continuous cycle. Although she did not know how much Yi Qianxian's strength had recovered, the dignified and deep aura around him had deepened a lot. The blood-red sword in his eyes was even sharper, as if it was going to materialize and rush out. Luo Qingtong knew that Yi Qianxian's strength must have recovered a lot. No, the word recovered could not be used. The man's strength had always been there. It was just that because of the limit of his meridians he could not exert it. "How much have you improved?" Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian with a smile and asked. "Now I should be able to exert 1/10 of my strength." Yi Qianxian felt the strength in his body and narrowed his eyes slightly. "I'll go out for a while." As he spoke, he dashed out of the room with a whoosh. In the courtyard outside, Fengyu was hiding in a dark corner. Then he heard Yi Qianxian's voice. "Follow me." He wanted to find a place to test his strength. Yes. At this time, Fengyu also felt the difference in his master's aura. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he rushed out with Yi Qianxian. Seeing the two figures disappear in the courtyard, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched and then she fell asleep. After working for half a day, she was exhausted. She did not even have time to check the situation in her body before she fell asleep. The next morning, Luo Qingtong woke up with a yawn. There was still no sign of Yi Qianxian. She did not know where he and Fengyu went to test their strength. However, when Luo Qingtong thought of Yi Qianxian's extraordinary strength, she knew that the two were definitely not near the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Otherwise, she did not know how big a commotion. She wanted to get out of bed and wash up. Then she began to check the condition of her body. Her strength was already at the level of a low-level martial emperor. However, there were no signs of breaking through to the mid-level martial emperor. After all, Luo Qingtong's current strength was no longer like when she was at the martial master or great martial master level. She could not break through by just absorbing a little bit of Yi Qianxian's strength. Moreover, after reaching the martial emperor level, she could only rely on her own comprehension to advance. It was impossible to rely on external forces. After all, at this level she had already begun to touch the power of heaven and earth. It was not just a simple increase in strength that could continue to advance. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she stopped probing her body. At this time, Su Xiaoxiao and the others' voices came from outside. Chapter 1061. Luo Qingtong stepped into the hall. In the hall, Yu Qingwei was waiting with a group of people from the Qingwei group. Seeing Luo Qingtong come in, she immediately stood up and nodded to her. "Junior sister Luo, I brought them here to apologize." Yu Qingwei had wholeheartedly accepted her loss in that battle. That masked girl's alchemy skills were simply too strong. Her title as the honorary lead alchemist was well deserved. And the people from the Qingwei group were extremely grateful to Luo Qingtong for not pursuing Yu Qingwei's responsibility. They were originally going to apologize after the battle. But because of that battle, Yu Qingwei had been inspired by Luo Qingtong's pill refining process and went into seclusion for a while. Her alchemy skills had greatly improved. That was why he had waited until today to apologize to the Heavenly Evil group. Junior sister Luo, we're sorry? Luo Yi ran and the others stepped forward and bowed to Luo Qingtong after Yu Qingwei's words. They were already filled with regret for the previous matter. Speaking of which, they didn't have any conflicts or grudges with Luo Qingtong and the others. Just because of Mo Yufei's words, they had developed prejudice against Luo Qingtong and attacked the Heavenly Demon group. They couldn't blame anyone else for falling to this state. They apologized one by one. Especially when facing Su Xiaoxiao, Luo Yi ran and the others were even more sincere. Their faces were burning with pain. They had ruthlessly humiliated Su Xiaoxiao before, but the result was that they were slapped in the face by her. Standing in front of Su Xiaoxiao now, they were really embarrassed. Their previous arrogance had all turned into unbearable memories. They wished they could dig a hole and hide in it. After the Qingwei group finished apologizing, Yu Qingwei looked at Luo Qingtong and nodded. Junior sister Luo, please help me tell the honorary lead alchemist that I thank her this time. Yu Qingwei didn't know that the honorary lead alchemist was Luo Qingtong. She had benefited a lot from the battle this time. He had truly entered the realm of a quasi-alchemist. In her opinion, if the other party had not pleaded for leniency, Luo Qingtong would not have forgiven the Qingwei group so easily. Thus, Yu Qingwei was very grateful to him. Sure. Luo Qingtong looked at her and smiled. At this moment she saw Yu Qingwei say, but I won't give up on His Highness. Junior sister Luo, I will compete with you fairly in the future. Pooh. When Luo Qingtong heard this, she almost choked on her own saliva. Oh my god. When she came back to her senses, her first reaction was that it was a good thing that Yi Qianxian was out. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if he heard what she had said? This was simply too deceptive. Little Pig, who was squatting on her shoulder, also twitched his lips. You misunderstood. I have no relationship with His Highness. Luo Qingtong waved her hand and hurriedly clarified her relationship with Ma Chenyi. She didn't want to carry the title of Ma Chenye's love and Ma Chenye's love. It wasn't that she was afraid of what Yi Qianxian would do to her if he found out. She was afraid that he would cut off Ma Chenye's head. Then the latter was simply too wronged. Really? On the other side, Yu Qingwei was still bashfully challenging Luo Qingtong. When she heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Luo Qingtong with pleasant surprise. It's true, it's true. Luo Qingtong hurriedly nodded. Yu Qingwei didn't want to cause more trouble for Ma Chenyi. If Yi Qianxian really misunderstood, Ma Chenyi wouldn't know how unlucky he would be. Chapter 1062. Good. I believe in you. Yu Qingwei looked at Luo Qingtong and solemnly nodded. Her eyebrows rose up, her eyes filled with joy. Then I'm sorry, junior apprentice sister Luo, I misunderstood you. After learning that Luo Qingtong wasn't her love rival, Yu Qingwei's entire being seemed to come alive. She was originally a quiet young girl that had walked out from a painting of an elegant lady. Now her entire body was brimming with vitality. Hearing that, Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. She waved her hand towards Yu Qingwei about to speak. At this time a group of people rushed in from outside. Luo Qingtong. This group of people wore the uniform of the Holy Academy's Council of Elders. They coldly looked at her and said, someone reported that you cheated in your gambling match with Yuan Mo and used evil techniques. This matter is of great importance. Please come with us. As these words came out, Su Xiaoxiao and the others were startled. They originally wanted to ask why they had rushed in. That's impossible. It's impossible for my boss to use evil techniques. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were no longer the same as when they had just entered the Holy Academy. They naturally knew that being accused of using evil techniques was a serious accusation. In the true Spill continent, martial artists and soul cultivators that used evil techniques were the most despised. This was different from forbidden techniques. No matter how sinister a forbidden technique was, the ones that were harmed were the martial artist and soul master that used the forbidden technique. But evil techniques were different. If one said that forbidden techniques sacrificed oneself to harm others, then evil techniques harmed others to benefit oneself. Forbidden techniques harmed oneself to obtain strength that surpassed oneself. But evil techniques robbed others to obtain strength that one didn't have. The nature of these two were completely different. In the True Spill continent, once someone that used evil techniques was discovered, they would immediately be besieged and hunted down. But in the four great holy dynasties, evil techniques were explicitly forbidden. Once discovered, they would be severely punished. Luo Qingtong had been accused of using evil techniques. Once this crime was established, crippling her cultivation and banishing her would be a light punishment. As Su Xiaoxiao and the others thought this, their hearts were suddenly filled with unspeakable anger and anxiety. Whether or not it is true, we'll know once we arrive at the Holy Academy's Council of Elders. The leader of the law enforcement team of the Sacred Academy said, "Take him away." He waved his hand fiercely. Immediately, a group of law enforcement team members behind him rushed out and grabbed Luo Qingtong. "Boss." Seeing this, Su Xiaoxiao and the others panicked. They rushed forward and stood in front of Luo Qingtong. "Right at this moment, stand down." Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Then her body suddenly moved. Bang bang bang. The members of the law enforcement team who were trying to grab Luo Qingtong screamed and flew backwards. Their bodies crashed heavily onto the ground. When the leader saw this, his expression suddenly changed and he glared at Luo Qingtong and said angrily, "You dare resist? Luo Qingtong, are you admitting that you used evil techniques and want to escape punishment?" As he said this, he looked at Luo Qingtong with vigilance, his hand already holding the signal to gather everyone. Luo Qingtong coldly looked at them. She waved her hand and brushed off the dust on her sleeves, her voice cold. "I'll go with you. But if you dare to touch me again, I'll cripple you." The young girl's eyes flashed with a faint blood-red light. Chapter 1063. Luo Qingtong would never be courteous to those who dared to lay their hands on her. Did these people really think that she was a prisoner? Luo Qingtong sneered. With a wave of her sleeve, she walked towards the elders of the Holy Academy. She already had a premonition that someone was trying to deal with her. "Boss." Seeing Luo Qingtong walking towards the elders of the Holy Academy, Su Xiaoxiao and the others quickly followed. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong would use sorcery. With the latter's strength and ability, how could she need to use sorcery to win against Yuanma? Knowing Luo Qingtong's identity and strength, Su Xiaoxiao's people didn't believe a word of the Holy Academy's law enforcement team. However, it was true that someone was trying to deal with Luo Qingtong. They didn't know who was so vicious. They actually framed their boss with such a crime. Was really hateful. Su Xiaoxiao and the others thought and immediately gritted their teeth. After they left, the people of the Qingwei group also looked at each other for a while. They didn't expect that when they came to apologize, they would run into such a thing. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to deal with Yuanma? This crime was not an ordinary one. If it was true, then Luo Qingtong would definitely be crippled. They looked at the girl next to them who was like a willow tree. "Senior sister?" They looked at her inquisitively. "Let's go and take a look together." Yu Qingwei pondered for a moment and said. Then she said to a member of the Qingwei group, "Go and inform His Highness the Crown Prince that something happened to Luo Qingtong. Tell him to hurry to the elders of the Holy Academy." "Let's go." Yu Qingwei didn't have much interaction with Luo Qingtong, but the girl didn't look like someone who would use sorcery. There might be something going on. Thinking of how Ma Chenyi protected her, Yu Qingwei thought for a while and decided to take people to take a look. The elders of the Holy Academy supported Mo Chenxian. For the sake of Ma Chenyi, Yu Qingwei naturally couldn't just watch and do nothing. What's more, after this gambling battle, Luo Qingtong did not continue to pursue the matter of the Qingwei group. Yu Qingwei still owed her a favor. With that thought in mind, she immediately said to the Qingwei group member, "Also inform the Grand Dean. Let him know about it." After explaining everything, Yu Qingwei and the others immediately headed towards the Holy Institute's elders. At the same time, in the Elders Guild of the Sacred Academy, Su Deheng and Xin Shuyue were already waiting there. Beside them sat Mo Chenxian, whose face was full of joy. "I didn't expect Great Teacher to change his mind and not let go of Luo Qingtong. This is exactly what I want." Mo Chenxian smiled and said to Su Deheng. He also greeted Xin Shuyue respectfully. Xin Shuyue was the person he had been trying to win over. If he had her support, he wouldn't be afraid of losing to Ma Chenyi in the imperial court. She was the external deacon of the Celestial Palace. The latter had been the crown prince for a long time. So what if he had a lot of power and connections? As long as Xin Shuyue supported him, He could pull the other party down from the throne before his strength surpassed Ma Chenye's. Mo Qinshan was so close to Yuan Ma before because of this. And not long ago, Xin Shuyue told him coldly that she would support him to fight for the throne. Thinking of this, Mo Qinshan suddenly smiled proudly. Speaking of which, he had to thank Luo Qingtong. If Ma Chenye hadn't been on good terms with her and protected her in every way possible, how could Xin Shuyue support him to fight for the throne so easily? Chapter 1064. Thinking of this, Mo Qinshan felt indescribably happy. He said to Su Deheng and Xin Shuyue, "Since you two hate Luo Qingtong so much, why don't you send her to me for training?" He smiled viciously and said, "It just so happens that I also have some grudges against her. I have plenty of people under me who can teach her a lesson and make her wish she was dead. I don't need to dirty your hands." "Okay." Xin Shuyue sneered. "Then I'll leave her to you. I will take Jingyue to see what kind of miserable situation she is in at that time." Su Deheng also sneered and nodded. Killing Luo Qingtong directly was certainly not better than torturing her and then killing her. Anyway, as long as it was confirmed that she used witchcraft, who knew what would happen to her after she was expelled from the hospital? Even if she was kidnapped by them, no one would know. At that time, they would see how miserable Luo Qingtong was, which could be regarded as revenge for Jingyue and Yuan. In the seats of the elders of the Sacred Academy, the first elder of the Sacred Academy and others also looked cold. "Humph, I didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would have such a day." The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy hated Luo Qingtong no less than Su Deheng and Mo Qinshan. Since they were slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong when they tried to expel her from the hospital, they were completely excluded from the core of the Sacred Academy. All the core of the Sacred Academy was controlled by the Grand Dean's faction. Not only that, they also became the laughingstock of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. When they heard that Su Deheng and others sued Luo Qingtong for using witchcraft, they immediately sent people to catch Luo Qingtong. Not only that, they also had the same idea as Mo Qinshan. The latter wanted to lead the matter to Ma Chenye. They wanted to shift the blame onto the Grand Supreme Dean. After all, how could someone like Luo Qingtong, who came from an inferior country, come into contact with things like witchcraft? Naturally, someone had given it to her. What kind of person was that? The group of elders from the Holy Academy sneered. The biggest possibility was evil Dr. Ghost Eye. But who would find trouble with her? They would only put this hat on the Grand Supreme Dean's head. As for evidence, wouldn't it be easy to forge? As long as they could confirm that Luo Qingtong had indeed used sorcery, they could guarantee that the Grand Principal would not be able to get away with it. Apart from that, there was also the Crown Prince. By then he would be able to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, and the matter would be resolved perfectly. As for the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, as long as she wasn't an idiot, she wouldn't jump out and say that she was the one who gave him the sorcery. What's more, he might not even know about this. By the time she found out, the matter had already been settled. As the group of people thought about this, they all began to laugh coldly. He calmly waited for Luo Qingtong's arrival. At this moment, Luo Qingtong might have been escorted here with a disheveled look. The first elder of the Holy Academy and others sneered. They specially told the law enforcement team of the Holy Academy to come here in a disheveled and humiliating way. Just when this group of people was thinking about this, bang! The door of the Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy was suddenly kicked open. Then, a figure was kicked in from the outside. Hearing the person's painful cry and the figure rolling in, the group of Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy showed a trace of satisfaction and sneer on their faces. Was Luo Qingtong kicked in? The group of people thought calmly. Chapter 1065. Because they suddenly realized that something was wrong with the cry. It didn't seem to be a woman's voice but a man's. Thinking of this, they immediately raised their eyes and looked ahead. With one look, their faces were instantly filled with rage. Luo Qingtong, what do you mean by this? At the front gate, the golden bronze door was wide open. The figure who was kicked in was lying on the ground. A figure dressed in fiery red clothes suddenly walked in from the gate and stepped on the figure. Only then did the elders of the Sacred Academy see clearly that the red figure was Luo Qingtong. And the figure under her foot was the member of the law enforcement team they sent to catch Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong. Seeing that the scene before them was completely different from what they had imagined, the group of elders from the Sacred Academy was infuriated. You're too arrogant. The crowd shouted angrily. This woman had already been exposed for using sorcery, but she still dared to be so arrogant and wanton. Did she really think that they wouldn't dare to do anything to her? Or did she think that the Grand Dean would be able to protect her? Unfortunately, she was wrong. Not to mention her, even the Grand Dean would be in trouble today. Facing the anger of the elders of the Sacred Academy, Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She looked at them with a sneer and said, "Elders, what do you think is not arrogant?" As she spoke, she kicked the figure of the law enforcement team away with a sneer. She had just said that if anyone dared to touch her again, she would cripple them. But they still dared to do it. Did they think that she wouldn't dare to do anything to them at the elders of the Sacred Academy? Luo Qingtong's face was cold. Her eyes swept over the law enforcement team members who came in behind her. First elder. Elders. The law enforcement team members limped in while supporting each other. They looked at Luo Qingtong with fear and resentment. Especially the leader of the law enforcement team. This woman dared to cripple them. And in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. How dare she? His expression was one of shock and fury. He was the one who had ordered the law enforcement team member to sneak attack Luo Qingtong. She had thought that Luo Qingtong would not dare to make a move after arriving here since she was so fierce. However, she didn't expect that she would directly cripple the law enforcement team member who had just made a move. The leading member of the law enforcement team was about to pounce on him. After Luo Qingtong made her move, he didn't dare to move. Great elders, you must uphold justice for us. The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. We were ordered to capture her, but she beat us up. Elders, Luo Qingtong is completely ignoring the rules of the Holy Academy and the Elders Association. The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy looked at the group of law enforcement team members who limped in from outside and almost fainted in an instant. It turned out that Luo Qingtong not only beat up a law enforcement team member of the Sacred Academy, but also beat up all the people they had sent. How dare she? Luo Qingtong, you've gone too far. You've despised the Elders Association and ignored the rules of the Sacred Academy. Guards. The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. They were about to call people to arrest Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1066. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. That's because they deserve to be beaten. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She stood in the middle of the hall of the Elders of the Sacred Academy and slowly walked to the front of the members of the law enforcement team. She lifted her leg with a sneer and kicked the leader of the law enforcement team out with a bang. Luo Qingtong. Before the members of the Elders of the Sacred Academy could do anything, Luo Qingtong's cold voice sounded. Since the elders want to talk about the rules with me, then I'll talk about the rules with you. I'm still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Before I'm expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, these members of the law enforcement team have no right to beat me up. Luo Qingtong sneered and flicked her sleeves. According to the rules of the Sacred Academy, if they beat me up, I'm qualified to fight back. Beat them up? Luo Qingtong lifted her leg and kicked another member of the law enforcement team out. That's because they deserve to be beaten up. Luo Qingtong had long known that the members of the Elders of the Sacred Academy were up to no good. Why did they send people to catch her? What? Even if someone accused her of using witchcraft, before she was officially expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, she was still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. These members of the law enforcement team dared to beat her up, let alone beat them up. Even if she beat them to death, what could the members of the Elders of the Sacred Academy do to her? Did they really think that she was a little girl who had never seen the world? She would be beaten up by the members of the law enforcement team just because she was a little frightened by the complaint? Luo Qingtong's words instantly made the members of the Elders of the Sacred Academy speechless. Previously, they had indeed thought that Luo Qingtong would be scared silly by this battle and wanted to teach her a lesson in advance. At the same time, they could also vent their resentment from being humiliated by her previously. They thought that Luo Qingtong wouldn't dare to fight back. He didn't expect her to be so bold and so meticulous. At this time he had already been exposed for using sorcery, yet he still dared to be so high-profile and arrogant. Good. All right. Everyone was so angry that their hearts hurt. They gritted their teeth and sneered at her. You're right this time. Luo Qingtong, the law enforcement team of the Sacred Academy attacked you. You didn't do anything wrong by fighting back. As the group of people spoke, their hearts were filled with hatred. Just bear with her for now. Once she was convicted of the crime, she would suffer a fate worse than death. She had to return all the slaps to her face. With that thought in mind, the group of elders of the Sacred Academy wanted to drag the members of the enforcement team away. The latter and the others had failed to complain and were beaten instead. Their faces were filled with dejection and they no longer dared to make a sound. He was about to leave with his tail between his legs. Luo Qingtong opened her mouth. "Wait, have I finished talking about this?" Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. "Luo Qingtong, what are you trying to do? This is the elders of the Sacred Academy. It's not a place where you can behave atrociously." The group of elders of the Sacred Academy was instantly furious. Were they trying Luo Qingtong or were they trying Luo Qingtong? Luo Qingtong had gone too far. "They attacked me. Shouldn't they be punished?" How could Luo Qingtong be so easy to deal with? The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy were already coming for her. In this case, it didn't matter whether they shed all pretense of cordiality or not. She wasn't the kind of person who would suffer losses. These people wanted to attack her and put her on trial? Fine. Let's wait until she was done. Let's take care of everything. Chapter 1067. Didn't you already beat them up to this state? Isn't this a lesson? The elders of the Sacred Academy were almost angered to death by Luo Qingtong. She had beaten up the law enforcement team sent by them, and now she was still talking to them? What else did she want? Luo Qingtong, they attacked you and you have already fought back. This matter is now even. The elders of the Sacred Academy said coldly. Even? Luo Qingtong looked at them with a faint smile. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had already caught up with her at this time. When they saw Luo Qingtong standing alone in the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy and confronting the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy, they immediately rushed over and stood behind her, expressing their support for her with practical actions. Luo Qingtong glanced at them from the corner of her eyes, and suddenly felt a wave of warmth and comfort in her heart. She raised her hand, and a chair not far away was instantly pulled over by her. After placing the chair behind her, Luo Qingtong flicked her sleeves and sat on it. She looked up at the elders of the Sacred Academy, who were so angered by her actions that they were dizzy and were about to scold her. She raised her hand and took out a token. She fiddled with the token in her hand, then looked up and smiled. As a student of the Heavenly Palace, they are indeed even with me. But as a holder of the Saint token, they attacked me, which is an offense against their superiors. After being beaten up, they should be punished more severely. Otherwise, where will the rules of the Sacred Academy exist? Where will the dignity of the Sacred Academy exist? The words that the elders of the Sacred Academy had scolded Luo Qingtong before were all returned by her. Luo Qingtong beckoned Yuan Hu and the others to press all the law enforcement team members to the ground. Cripple them. Her voice was cold. These law enforcement team members were ordered by the elders of the Sacred Academy to arrest her, but they secretly wanted to humiliate her. They even wanted to plot against her. And then they complained in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Did they think that she didn't see their resentful eyes just now? Luo Qingtong sneered. Since they hated her so much, it didn't matter if they hated her more. Luo Qingtong was not the kind of person to be unforgiving. But if they were courting death, then she didn't mind fulfilling their wish. Saint token. Looking at the thing in Luo Qingtong's hand, the elders of the Sacred Academy were shocked and then furious. The Grand Principal actually gave such a thing to Luo Qingtong? What a bastard. What did he take the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin? His personal territory? Even something like a saint token could be given away so casually? The elders of the Sacred Academy's Titi, especially the first elder of the Sacred Academy. He originally thought that using such a despicable method to pull down the Grand Principal and the others wasn't good. But now, looking at the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand, he was so angry that he trembled all over. He wished he could drive Din Din and the others out of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin right now. However, they didn't know that the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand had nothing to do with Din Din at all. They were the spoils of war that she had obtained after defeating Saint Meng. Din Din had wanted to take it back. But he didn't succeed. Now that Luo Qingtong took out the saint token, these law enforcement team members made a big mistake by attacking her. Bang bang bang. Chapter 1068. Ah. Amid the shrill screams, the members of the law enforcement team were rolling on the ground. Their hearts were filled with regret. If they had known that provoking Luo Qingtong would lead to such a result, They would never have attacked her in order to curry favor with the elders of the Sacred Academy. It had nothing to do with them at all. It was the elders of the Sacred Academy who wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong. They only needed to bring her to the Sacred Academy. It was too late for them to regret. No one had expected that Luo Qingtong would have the Sacred Academy token. The latter had never been revealed and had never been taken out. They were in pain and regretful. The shrill screams almost resounded throughout the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Hearing these ear-piercing screams, the members of the Council of Elders of the Sacred Institute turned pale. Luo Qingtong's slap was very loud. They had sent these people to catch Luo Qingtong, but now they were crippled in front of them. And they couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtong. The group of people gritted their teeth so hard that the sound of grinding could be heard. Luo Qingtong, how are you? You're doing very well. The elders of the Sacred Academy pointed at her, their faces full of ferocity and anger. Of course I'm doing very well. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she squinted her eyes. These people wanted to deal with her? It was ridiculous. She was sure that the one who would be punished later would not be her. Well, didn't the elders of the Sacred Academy come to me to talk about cheating? We can start now. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and flicked her sleeves. Her face was indescribably careless, as if she didn't take the elders of the Sacred Academy seriously at all. The girl's face was gorgeous, delicate, enchanting and domineering. Sitting on the wide chair like this, his aura instantly overwhelmed the group of elders of the Holy Academy opposite him. People who didn't know better would think that the people who were waiting for trial were the elders of the Sacred Academy. Looking at Luo Qingtong's domineering and careless appearance, the elders of the Sacred Academy gnashed their teeth even louder. Luo Qingtong, wait and see. She would regret it later. The elders of the Sacred Academy inhaled and exhaled again and finally calmed down. If they couldn't calm down, they would probably faint on the spot. Good. They said coldly, let's start. The rhythm of the elders of the Sacred Academy was smashed by Luo Qingtong's unconventional moves. They were going to punish Luo Qingtong directly, and then snorted and let her to confess the matter. In this way they could vent their anger and see Luo Qingtong in a sorry state. Then they could finally beat her to the bottom of the mud. But the result? The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting comfortably on the chair. The word start was incomparably sullen and gloomy. The Seoul Institute's great teacher and the others also stared sullenly at the scene. This is that Luo Qingtong? Shen Shuyue looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting on the wide chair, and said with a serious expression. When Luo Qingtong arrived, they were prepared to see a joke. In the end they saw a joke. However, it wasn't the joke of Luo Qingtong that they had imagined. Instead, it was the joke of the elders of the Sacred Academy, who had been humiliated to the point that they wished they were dead. Shen Shuyue, who saw Luo Qingtong for the first time, finally understood why her husband, daughter, and Yu Wenma had suffered so much at the hands of Luo Qingtong. She was indeed not ordinary. But so what? Chapter 1069. Shen Shuyue's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Luo Qingtong also looked over at Su Deheng and the others after the elders of the Sacred Academy spoke. When she saw Shen Shuyue's murderous gaze, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. Who was the other party? She looked up slightly and glanced at the position and distance between Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue. She suddenly guessed the relationship between the two. If she guessed correctly, the other party should be Su Jinyue's mother? As expected, they were a family. Were they here to seek revenge from him? When Luo Qingtong came, she had already guessed that Su Deheng and Emo Qinshan were probably behind this. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. However, Su Jinyue's mother was also involved in this matter. It was said that the wife of the Seoul Institute's great teacher had an extraordinary status. Su Jinyue relied on their love and care to be very arrogant in the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Almost no one dared to provoke her. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. At this moment the people from the Qingwei group arrived. Junior sister Luo. Yu Qingwei led her people to Luo Qingtong's side and saw the latter sitting on a wide chair with a relaxed and comfortable look. She was instantly stunned. Why was this not the scene she had imagined? Yu Qingwei's expression was blank. She thought that she would see Luo Qingtong being targeted when she came over. She had originally planned to bring the people from the Qingwei group to block for Luo Qingtong if the elders of the Sacred Academy went too far. But now, what was going on? The group was a little confused. However, Yu Qingwei still subconsciously led the people from the Qingwei group to stand on Luo Qingtong's side. Senior Sister Qingwei. Luo Qingtong was also a little surprised to see the people from the Qingwei group. She didn't expect Yu Qingwei to bring the people from the Qingwei group here, although she had left in front of the Qingwei group. However, in such a situation, wouldn't most people be wise enough to protect themselves? Junior Sister Luo, don't be afraid. Yu Qingwei's lips couldn't help but twitch. Luo Qingtong didn't look scared at all. Her lips twitched as she continued, I've already informed His Highness the Crown Prince and the Grand Principal. The two of them should be here soon. Yu Qingwei had just finished speaking when Ma Chenyi and the Grand Principal appeared outside the door at the same time. The two of them were followed by a group of people. They were in a hurry as they strode into the hall. Qingtong. Girl, are you alright? The Grand Principal took a step forward and rushed in front of Luo Qingtong. Nothing must happen to this girl. Otherwise, that fiend Yi Qianxian would tear down the empire of Qin's Holy Academy. And it was the kind that couldn't be stopped. The Grand Principal's figure was anxious and Ma Chenyi wasn't much better behind him. He stepped through the door with a heavy expression. After seeing that Luo Qingtong was safe and sound, his expression relaxed a little. Whether it was in terms of justice or personal relations, he didn't want to see anything happen to Luo Qingtong. First Elder. Why did your Elders' Council attack Luo Qingtong? Ma Chenyi's voice was cold and dignified. His gaze swept over the members of the law enforcement team who were wailing on the ground and his expression instantly darkened. His expression was sullen. At this moment, the might of the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin was fully displayed. Chapter 1070. They attacked Luo Qingtong? It was Luo Qingtong who attacked them, okay. That group of law enforcement team members were disabled by her. The group of people stared at Ma Chenyi and others, speechless for a long time. However, Mo Qinshan and others looked at the arrival of Grandine and Ma Chenyi and smiled coldly. It seems that everyone is here. Mo Qinshan chuckled and stood up. He looked at Ma Chenyi and said, Brother, you don't have to complain for Luo Qingtong. She's fine. It's the law enforcement team members who are in trouble. However, Grandine even gave the Saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. This protection is really rare. However, although you have a good relationship with Luo Qingtong, it's not right to cheat for her and find sorcery for her to attack you and Mo. What do you mean? Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. The member of the Qingwei group who came to report only said that something happened to Luo Qingtong, but did not say what happened. Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. Now it seemed that Ma Chenyi and others actually accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery? Moreover, he had even plotted against him and the Grand Supreme Dean? Thinking of this, Ma Chenyi's heart suddenly froze. No wonder he found out that Mo Qinshan was investigating Luo Qingtong. He originally wanted to remind the latter. But he did not expect that before he could do it, the other party attacked. Brother, you should understand what I mean. And Grandine, you should also understand. Mo Qinshan smiled sinisterly. He looked indifferent and looked at Ma Chenyi and Grandine calmly. Today these two people, neither of them could escape. They would all be unlucky together with Luo Qingtong. It was a pity that Yi Luo was not here. Otherwise he would also be dealt with. Mo Qinshan thought and smiled coldly. Grandine stood beside Luo Qingtong. After seeing that the latter was fine, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then he heard Mo Qinshan say that he gave the Saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. In an instant he almost could not breathe. That Saint token was not given by him. He was wronged. The Grand Supreme Headmaster felt a wave of depression in his heart. He didn't realize that his focus had deviated. But Ma Chenyi's face was cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to cheat. How could this be possible? Knowing that Luo Qingtong was the princess of Chu, Mo Qinshan didn't believe it at all. I knew that you would not admit it. Fortunately, we were prepared. As Mo Qinshan spoke, he threw out the information he had found about Luo Qingtong. Of course, Luo Qingtong was the great Qin Empire's princess. He did not find out. At this moment, he raised his head slightly and looked at Ma Chenyi coldly. Here is all the information about Luo Qingtong's cultivation, strength and talent. Luo Qingtong, can you explain how you could have the same Ice Soul Seal as Yuan Mo and use the same soul skill as him during the gambling battle? You are just an ordinary martial artist and have never shown any soul seal talent. Besides, the soul seal formed by the cold air in Yuan Mo's body is different from other ice soul seals. Even if you really have an ice soul seal, It is absolutely impossible to use Yuan Mo's unique soul skill. Chapter 1071. Emo Qinxian sneered. He glanced at the girl who was sitting on the chair without any change in her expression. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. It turned out that Yi Qianxian said that Emo Qinxian and the others were investigating her just to set up this trap of cheating and using witchcraft to deal with her? Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. If so, Emo Qinxian and the others found the wrong way. As Luo Qingtong thought so, Su Xiaoxiao and the others beside her were also surprised. It turned out that Emo Qinxian and the others caught their boss with great fanfare through the Elders Guild because of this? The group of people suddenly felt speechless. When they thought of the false soul seal on their bodies, they felt more confident about this trial. If Emo Qinxian and the others wanted to slander their boss through this, they would end up badly. It was a slap in the face. As the group of people thought about it, their hearts, which had been in their throats, were immediately put back at ease. On the contrary, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were nervous after hearing Emo Qinshuan's words. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong used witchcraft. They were afraid that Emo Qinxian and the others were so well prepared that Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Oh no! The two couldn't help but feel nervous. Looking at their expressions, Emo Qinxian burst into laughter. Luo Qingtong and the others couldn't defend themselves. But it wouldn't end here. He sneered, threw the documents in his hand to the ground, and then said, "You can't say anything, right? Because you helped Luo Qingtong to practice witchcraft, so that she could attack Yuan Ma." He said coldly to Luo Qingtong, "Luo Qingtong, you hate Yuan Ma, so you didn't hesitate to destroy him. The collapse of the cold air in his body was the result of your witchcraft, right?" Emo Qinxian sneered. "After you disabled him, you said that he deserved it. Push the blame to him for being ungrateful in the past. In any case, Yuan Emo is already crippled. He can't defend himself. Even if I try to defend myself, no one will listen. Everyone will only think that he's trying to slander you. It's a pity that you were too vicious and exposed yourself in the end," Emo Qinxian said righteously. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched at his words. Emo Qinxian really had a talent for telling stories. She almost believed the story. Hearing Emo Qinshuan's words, the elders of the Academy of Saint Academy, who had just been humiliated by Luo Qingtong, suddenly shouted angrily as if they had caught something that could be used against them. "Luo Qingtong, the evidence is here. What else do you have to say?" They raised their hands and pointed at the documents that Emo Qinxian threw out. "And the two of you, in order to protect Luo Qingtong, you actually found sorcery for her to cultivate. Especially you, Grand Dean. You helped Luo Qingtong to harm the students of the Saint Academy. What right do you have to be in charge of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin?" The group of elders of the Sacred Institute said righteously. In an instant, behind the Grand Dean, the group of mentors who followed the Grand Dean changed their expressions. Obviously, the elders of the Saint Academy wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of the Grand Dean. Chapter 1072. The group of people's faces suddenly became serious. The expressions of the Dean and the others behind the Grand Dean also turned solemn. "Master." "Grand Dean." The group of people looked at the Grand Dean nervously. The Grand Dean also frowned. The situation was not good. These people not only wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong, but also he and Ma Chenyi were involved. The Grand Dean had no doubt that the other party had already done something to him and Ma Chenyi's mansion. The Grand Dean thought so, and so did Ma Chenyi. Behind him, the group of people who followed him suddenly became restless. At this moment, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean seemed to have fallen into the trap set by Emo Qinxian and the elders of the Saint Academy. Su Deheng and Xin Shuyue sat there and looked at Luo Qingtong with a sneer. They didn't need to do anything at all. Emo Qinxian had already helped them to do it properly. Luo Qingtong would definitely not be able to get away this time. Even Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were in the same situation. Who asked them to shield and protect Luo Qingtong? Now they would be buried with her. The two of them laughed complacently. After the elders of the Saint Academy blamed Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi, they immediately sent people to the place where they lived to search. Naturally, they searched a pile of letters and materials on behalf of them, looking for evil arts for Luo Qingtong to practice. Those things were thrown in front of Luo Qingtong, Ma Chenyi, and the Grand Dean. "What else do you have to say?" the elders of the Saint Academy asked. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and said, "I have nothing to say. She usually only liked to fight." The Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi both frowned. Especially the Grand Dean. When he looked at Luo Qingtong, his eyebrows were tangled. He was almost like a fried dough twist. Do you have a way to get out of here? If you can't, I'll send you out. The Grand Dean frowned as he spoke to Luo Qingtong. The matter this time was really too big. It was obvious that Su Deheng wanted to harm Luo Qingtong and wanted to use Mo Qinshian to do it. The Grand Supreme Dean didn't care about the situation on his side. In any case, those people from the Elders Guild only wanted to seize his authority. But Luo Qingtong was different. If she really couldn't escape and something happened to her here, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't dare to imagine the consequences. No matter what, he had to make sure that she was fine. It's okay. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Let them continue to play. Don't worry, I can turn the tables. As she spoke, she raised her eyes to look at Mo Qinshian, who was sitting with Su Deheng and the others, looking very smug. The latter was currently talking to Ma Chenyi. Brother, why are you so careless? Mo Qinshian looked at Ma Chenyi with a smile, and his words were full of pity and sarcasm. For a woman, you didn't hesitate to find sorcery for her to practice. As the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin, your behavior is very inappropriate. It's okay that the Grand Supreme Dean is muddle-headed. Why can't you figure it out? As he spoke, he deliberately sighed heavily and said, if Father knows this, he will be very disappointed. Brother, why do you have to do this? Ma Chenyi looked at Mo Qinshian coldly and didn't speak. On the contrary, Yu Qingwei stood out at once. Mo Qinshian, you deliberately set up the Crown Prince. She looked sullen. She had been watching from the side just now. Chapter 1073. Senior Sister Qingwei, you have to be responsible for your words. The evidence here is conclusive. How can you say that I framed them? Mo Qinshian sneered at her. He didn't take Yu Qingwei and others seriously at all. Even if they knew that he framed Ma Chenyi and others, so what? There were witnesses and evidence. Unless Luo Qingtong could turn the tables, Ma Chenyi and Grand Supreme Dean would not be able to defend themselves. Who asked them to defend Luo Qingtong so much? If they wanted to blame someone, they should blame Luo Qingtong. If she didn't give them a chance, how could they lay their hands on Ma Chenyi and Grand Supreme Dean? Mo Qinshian said to Mo Qinshian. The person behind him said, if you know what's good for you, leave Ma Chenyi quickly. Otherwise, when you get out of here, you will be in trouble with him. When he said this, the group of people behind Ma Chenyi suddenly looked at each other. The latter was furious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded in his mind. Don't worry about him. Just treat it as a monkey show. Let him jump around. The girl's voice was faint. She didn't say anything, but inexplicably gave people a feeling of wanting to believe her. The anger in Ma Chenyi's heart disappeared instantly. His eyes lit up slightly, and an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that Luo Qingtong had a way to deal with Mo Qinshian and others? He thought so, and his heart was full of expectation. When he looked at Mo Qinshian again, he was almost like a clown. Many of the people behind Ma Chenyi were swayed by Mo Qinshian's words. After swaying left and right for a while, many people stood out one after another. Your Highness, I'm sorry. Some people said as they stepped away from Ma Chenyi and walked to Mo Qinshian. Your Highness King Wu. Those people bowed to Mo Qinshian. Ah, good. You follow me and I won't treat you badly. Mo Qinshian looked at this scene and was very happy in his heart. Finally, one day he could poach the people around Ma Chenyi. He wondered if Ma Chenyi would be heartbroken when he saw this scene. Mo Qinshian thought, and he was very proud. Seeing this scene, Grand Supreme Dean immediately said to the mentors behind him, it seems that I'm going to be in trouble this time. If you want to leave, hurry up. Otherwise, if you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one. When he said these words, those mentors who followed him looked at each other for a while. Finally, a few people stood out with their heads lowered. Dean, I'm sorry. After they left, they walked to Ma Chenyi's side to leave. After getting rid of the Grand Dean and Mo Chenyi, the elders of the Saint Academy Mo Qinshian, and the others all focused on Luo Qingtong. Luo Yu. The Machen elders of Ma Chenyi sneered at her. They all looked very unfriendly and their eyes on Luo Qingtong were like knives. This woman was so arrogant just now, and now she fell into their hands? A group of people said coldly, Luo Qingtong, you practice evil magic, and you use it to deal with your peers of Machen Academy. You can't be forgiven. We're going to destroy your cultivation, arrest you and punish you severely. When they said this, the group of people's gazes became abnormally sinister and vicious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 1074. Luo Qingtong, who had been silent all this time, raised her eyebrows and stood up. She looked at the elders of the Sacred Academy who were about to attack. The show was over. It was her turn. Today she would let them know what it meant to be too late to regret. You? The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at her and sneered. Luo Qingtong, don't think that you can buy time for someone to save you. Are you waiting for the chief instructor of the Sacred Academy? The group thought that they had seen through Luo Qingtong's plan. However, if he can save you, what about the people around you? The group sneered and threatened her. I advise you not to play any tricks. Otherwise, the people around you won't have a good ending. The group was unspeakably fearless. Even if the other party had the supreme holy token, they were not afraid. You are not qualified for me to play any tricks. Luo Qingtong snorted coldly. Only someone like Yi Qianxian who wanted to kill her was worthy of her careful escape. Just these people from the Council of Elders of the Holy Academy, they still wanted her to play tricks on them? They should see if they were qualified. How shameless. Luo Qingtong snorted disdainfully. As they spoke, they were ridiculed once again. The people from the Elder Council of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. Just as they were about to take her down, the Grand Dean stood in front of Luo Qingtong with the rest of the instructors behind him. This girl is asking you a question. Did you not hear her? Are you deaf? The Grand Supreme Dean's face was filled with anger and displeasure. If she didn't use any sorcery, why did you touch her? Do you think we are dead? As he spoke, Mo Chenai led the only remaining supporters behind him and stood in front of the elders of the Academy of the Saint Academy. Elders, you'd better talk nicely. He flicked his sleeves coldly. Otherwise, it won't be a good thing if you hurt me. Ma Chenyi was still the crown prince, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. If the elders of the Sacred Academy heard him, it would be interesting. The group was aggrieved and didn't know whether to advance or retreat. The last elder of the Sacred Academy said angrily, "Okay. We will give you a chance. Luo Qingtong, let's see what you can prove." Idiot. The group of people looked very disdainful. So did Mo Qinshan and others. How could Luo Qingtong prove that she didn't practice sorcery? Yuanma was lying on the bed. She had used her opponent's unique soul skill to defeat him. Furthermore, according to the information he had gathered, she did not reveal any soul seal talent. In addition, the ice soul imprint in Yuanma's body was indeed very special. It was born from the cold energy in his body. Under such circumstances, they only believed in one thing. That was, Luo Qingtong had indeed used an evil technique to steal the soul seal attribute from Yuanma's body. No matter what she said, it was impossible to prove that she did not practice any sorcery. The group of people was extremely complacent. Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently and said, "You haven't said what will you do if I really prove it? What will you do?" The group of elders of the Sacred Academy sneered, "If you can really prove that you don't practice sorcery, then we will kowtow to you and apologize. How many times have we slandered you? How many times have we slapped ourselves? How about that?" Chapter 1075. Did Luo Qingtong want to use her goading method in front of them? Wasn't it just some conditions? They would satisfy her. Let's see what other tricks she could play. The group of elders of the academy had been tricked by Luo Qingtong. They felt that Luo Qingtong was deliberately provoking them to answer this question so that they wouldn't dare to answer. Then she could justifiably stall for time and bring this topic to an end. Therefore, when the group of people spoke, they were very neat and tidy without any sloppiness at all. Let's see what other excuses Luo Qingtong could come up with. While they were thinking, they heard Luo Qingtong say, "That's it." Luo Qingtong looked at them with a sneer. "Just now when you swore that I practiced black magic, you wanted to destroy my cultivation and force the Grand Dean and the others to leave. If I prove that I didn't practice black magic, you have to treat the Grand Dean like you treated him before and get out of the Academy of the Empire of Qin. The Academy of Elders of the Academy will be completely disbanded. In addition, not only you, but all those who participated in slandering me will have to apologize to me, kneel down and kowtow. Do you dare to do it or not?" The group of people was furious by Luo Qingtong's words. This woman said it deliberately, didn't she? Did she think that they would be paranoid and afraid because of what she said? They didn't dare to agree? It was ridiculous. The group of people agreed without hesitation and then said in a gloomy voice, "But if you can't prove it, then kneel down and destroy your cultivation. Save us the trouble." Okay. Luo Qingtong naturally agreed. The two sides were tit for tat. On the other side, Mo Qinxian also agreed to Luo Qingtong's conditions. In his opinion, whether Luo Qingtong really practiced black magic or not, it didn't matter. She couldn't find the evidence. Thinking of this, he suddenly sneered. However, just as he laughed, he heard Luo Qingtong say, "Come up and show them." Mo Qinxian was stunned. He looked up and saw that Su Xiaoxiao and others stepped forward as Luo Qingtong spoke. Boom. They already knew how to break Mo Qinxuan's trap. Just now, he and Luo Qingtong were watching the show from the side. At this moment, he simply raised his hand. With a boom, the few of them unleashed Yu Wenma's unique soul skill that Luo Qingtong had taught them. In an instant, there were a few explosions in the air of the hall. What? Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Even the Grand Principal and Ma Qinyi, who already knew beforehand that Luo Qingtong had a way to turn the tables, were shocked and stunned. Holy shit! Were these people trying to defy the heavens? The Grand Principal and others stared at Su Xiaoxiao and others with their eyes wide open. They didn't know about the others, but Su Xiaoxiao, Yuanhu, Sima Ju, Ling Tianhan and the others couldn't have the ice attribute soul seal. Then how did they release the attack with the ice aura? Don't talk about using black magic. There were so many people, how many people's soul seal attributes would they need to rob? And these people's attribute strength was exactly the same. There was no difference. More importantly, the cold aura emitted by these people was exactly the same as Yu Wenma's. The latter's attribute soul seal was so special that Luo Qingtong could just rob it. Where could they find a few people who were exactly the same for Su Xiaoxiao to rob? Chapter 1076. The group of people was horrified in an instant. They looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in horror, with a look of disbelief as if they had seen a ghost. The people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy were even more shocked and speechless. Not to mention Mo Qinxian. He finally knew why Luo Qingtong said that she could prove that she didn't practice evil arts. The aura in Su Xiaoxiao and the others' bodies was the proof. They didn't practice evil arts, but they could have the same cold power as Yu Wenma and use the latter's unique soul skill. In this case, Luo Qingtong was immediately cleared of suspicion. Mo Qinxian and the people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy almost popped their eyes out. Especially Mo Qinxian, his words just now were so complacent. This was how shocking and unbelievable it was. How was this possible? He looked at the attacks released by Su Xiaoxiao and the others in disbelief and almost staggered back and fell to the ground. Bang! As he retreated, he bumped into someone behind him and almost fell to the ground. And that person didn't react, just looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in front of him in shock. Luo Qingtong and the others turned the tables. In such an impossible situation, they turned the tables. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. Mo Qinxian staggered to stand firm and finally rushed to Su Xiaoxiao and hissed, "Impossible! How could you release Yu Wenma's unique soul skill and cold power? You must have used some means. Did he use some kind of special treasure?" His figure and voice were extremely disheveled. Mo Qinxian couldn't accept his failure. He was about to trample Ma Qinyi to the bottom of the valley. And the Grand Dean would also lose the control of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Luo Qingtong would be in big trouble. In such a case, how could he lose? It was one thing for Luo Qingtong to be able to use Yu Wenma's unique soul skill, but how could Su Xiaoxiao and the others be able to use it as well? Luo Qingtong's method of asking Su Xiaoxiao and the others to prove themselves was even more inexplicable than her choosing someone on the spot and copying their soul skills. Everyone present could see it clearly. The special treasure that Mo Qinxian mentioned was impossible. Let's not talk about how such a special treasure was able to replicate Yu Wenma's unique soul imprint power. How could Su Xiaoxiao and the others have so many special treasures? It would be amazing to have even one. That was a treasure, not some cabbage that could be found on the roadside. And Luo Qingtong's next words confirmed their thoughts. Of course, I have my own methods. If you think that this is not enough proof, I don't mind if you randomly choose another person and let them have the same cold power. Luo Qingtong's words were said casually, but everyone present was shocked. Luo Qingtong could let people have the power of the cold soul imprint at will. Such a shocking method, but she said it so casually. This was the power of the soul imprint. she could let people have it casually? Didn't that mean that as long as Luo Qingtong was willing, she could let anyone in the world become a soul personage? Even if the power of this soul personage could be controlled by her, but it was still a soul personage. My God. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. Chapter 1077. It's her. It must be her. If this means did not come from her, then it must be from Blackfield. But for so many years this means had never been heard of. If it came from Blackfield, it was impossible that they had not heard of it at all. So this power must come from the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Oh my God. Thinking of that legendary reckless young man, that evil young man who created the fastest rising legend, but who was so mysterious that no one knew, everyone was panting heavily in their hearts. No one did not want to have such a powerful means. But thinking of the black field and the underworld venerable behind her, in an instant, the fire in everyone's heart seemed to be poured by a basin of cold water, and they did not have any other thoughts. And Luo Qingtong, who could be specially favored by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, made them envious. She was really lucky. She actually had such a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and the latter helped her in various ways. While the others were envious, Mo Qinshan and the people of the Holy Academy's Elders Guild were so embarrassed that they could not even stand steadily. Since Luo Qingtong could say such words, it meant that she really had such confidence. So, they had racked their brains but in fact they had made a mistake? Luo Qingtong did not practice any sorcery at all, but got a kind of heaven-defying means which could copy and use the power of other people's soul seals. Since it was not sorcery, they had no reason to judge Luo Qingtong at all. Those accusations and righteous words against Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi just now looked extremely ridiculous. Just how confident were they before this? How badly their faces would be slapped. Thinking of the words they had just accused the Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi, the Elders Guild of the Holy Academy and Mo Qinshan felt a burning pain in their faces. No wonder Luo Qingtong did not say a word just now. This woman was simply laughing at them. To treat their performance as an act. Thinking about how they had become clowns for no reason, trying their best to deal with Luo Qingtong, Grand Dean Mo Qinshan and the rest, but they were all treated as jokes. The elders of the Sacred Academy and Mo Qinshuan's eyes turned black. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, who had been watching the development of the situation and waiting for Luo Qingtong and the others to be beaten to the bottom of the mud, also stood up abruptly with an unsightly expression and disbelief. Luo Qingtong actually has such means? Shen Qiuyue said in disbelief. It's not her, it must be that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Su Deheng's expression was not much better than hers. The two of them looked at the beautiful girl who was surrounded by the crowd, and their hearts were filled with indescribable depression and hatred. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong could turn the situation around like this? Originally, Su Deheng was 100% sure that Luo Qingtong must have practiced the evil arts to be able to make Yuan Ma become like this. All her performances were all in line with the conditions of practicing the evil arts. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong had obtained the nature-defying means from evil Dr. Ghost Eye? It was through that means that Yuan Ma was defeated. And it also made him the laughingstock of the whole the Empire of Qin for having eyes but failing to see. Thinking of this, Su Deheng was so angry that his heart ached. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with incomparable hatred. Chapter 1078. Elders, do you still remember what you said just now? I have proved my innocence. I didn't practice any sorcery. So, shouldn't you fulfill your promise? Luo Qingtong sneered and said, please kneel down and apologize. By the way, don't stop the slapping. I'll ask someone to count it for you. How long has it been since you called me here? One slap for every breath. I'll wait. By the way, Your Highness King Wu. Luo Qingtong looked at Mo Qinshan and the elders of the Saint Academy with a smile. Their faces suddenly changed. The latter and the others felt extremely humiliated. But in this situation they had to kneel down. The Grand Dean Ma Chenyi and the others were watching. The elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Qinshan had humiliated them before. Now they were going to pay back all the humiliation. Elders, kneel down. The Grand Dean snorted coldly. They were all mentors of the Saint Academy. In fact, he didn't want to make things so ugly. But who asked the elders of the Saint Academy to be so aggressive? Thinking that if Luo Qingtong hadn't found a way to turn the situation around, He would have been slandered and driven out of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. He snorted coldly. The evils they brought on themselves were the hardest to bear. These people had made the promise themselves, so they had to eat it themselves. The faces of the elders of the Sacred Academy were ashen. Under the gaze of the Grand Dean and the mentors, they slapped themselves in the face. In the loud slapping sound, Ma Chenyi and the people of the Guiyuan group looked at Mo Qinshan coldly and said, "Brother, do you want to do it yourself? Or I'll ask someone to help you." Mo Qinshan's face darkened. He pinched his palms hard and said, "Brother, I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. You humiliated me in front of outsiders. Aren't you afraid that Father will blame you?" He tried to escape punishment. No matter how ridiculous the bet with Luo Qingtong was, it was Mo Qinshan's personal behavior after all. Worst comes to worst, I'll just take it that he's crazy. But this time, if he had to kneel and apologize to Luo Qingtong and then slap himself in the face, it would be extremely damaging to the reputation of the imperial family of the Empire of Qin. Mo Qinshan tried to persuade Ma Chenyi to give up the punishment. However, he had been too ruthless in the past. He was about to dethrone the crown prince of Ma Chenyi. How could he still talk to him about the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin? Even if Ma Chenyi had to risk being punished by the Emperor of the Empire of Qin, he would never let Mo Qinshan escape punishment. What was more, Mo Qinshan put a pile of evidence in his mansion to prove that he had something to do with Luo Qingtong's practice of witchcraft. Just based on these, Ma Chenyi was enough to deal with Mo Qinshan. Those who supported the latter in the royal family of the Empire of Qin could not even let out a fart. "I'm teaching my brother how to be a man." What's more, the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin doesn't need to be defended by a villain who framed his brother and plotted to dethrone the crown prince of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chenyi looked at Mo Qinshan with a cold face. "Don't think that you can fool me with those words. Mo Qinshan, just tell me whether you want to hit me or not." "No? I'll ask someone to hit me for you." Slap, slap, slap. After Ma Chenyi finished speaking, Mo Qinshan had already clenched his teeth and slapped himself hard. His heart was full of resentment. "Ma Chenyi, don't think that you'll be fine after escaping this time. When I succeed, I'll kill you. And Luo Qingtong." Chapter 1079. Mo Qinshan's face was extremely ferocious, and he kept slapping himself. As for the people from the Qingwei group, they were already dumbfounded. Oh my god. They watched Luo Qingtong turn the tables. In just an instant, she managed to reverse the situation that was about to kill her, as well as the crown prince and the grand principal. When they heard that Mo Qinshan accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery, they knew that Luo Qingtong couldn't get over it. To put it bluntly, even if Luo Qingtong really didn't practice sorcery, so what? She and Yuan Mo's bet was suspicious, and with Mo Qinshan's investigation, she didn't have the talent of Soul Seal. Then Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Just look at how the Dean of the Grand Hall and the Crown Prince were implicated. But who knew that Luo Qingtong would clear herself of suspicion in the next instant? This method was simply amazing. Yu Qingwei just wanted to protect Ma Chenyi desperately, but she didn't expect that Luo Qingtong resolved the crisis so easily. Not only that, she also let the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Qinshan suffer the consequences of their own actions. Seeing that their faces were almost swollen, Yu Qingwei kneeled and apologized. Yu Qingwei's usually calm and elegant eyes widened as she kneeled and apologized. "Fortunately, you listened to me and reconciled with them." After holding it in for a long time, she finally squeezed out such a sentence from her mouth. Hearing this, the members of the Qingwei group shuddered. They felt that their own group leader was really too amazing. If senior sister Qingwei didn't come back to reconcile with Luo Qingtong, but to fight with them to the end, then they would probably end up like the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Qinshan. Thinking of this, the people of Qingwei group suddenly shuddered again. Oh my god, it was too scary. Fortunately, the group of people rejoiced. And those who originally thought that the Dean of the Grand Hall and Ma Chenyi had lost power and defected, looked at the scene in front of them, and their hearts were full of despair and regret. If they knew that the Dean of the Grand Hall, Crown Prince, was fine, they wouldn't have been so eager to switch sides. Wouldn't it be better to wait until things were settled? However, they thought that the sooner they switched sides, the more impressions they would have, so they directly took sides after Mo Qinshan spoke. Now it was too late for regrets. They were brought here by Ma Chenyi in the Grand Hall, almost all of the latter's confidants. So they decided to betray and show their loyalty to Ma Qinshan. Now that he hadn't shown his loyalty, his path had been completely cut off. This was especially true for those teachers who had betrayed the Grand Principal. They couldn't even cry. The elders of the Saint Academy and Crown Prince made the trial results of the Grand Hall were false. After this series of events, the Grand Qin Sacred Academy would be completely removed from the Grand Qin Sacred Academy. From then on, the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin would be dominated by the Dean of the Grand Hall. It would completely become the Dean of the Grand Hall. What did they miss out on? The group of people beat their chests and stamped their feet. It was too late for regrets. Let's go. A good plan turned out like this. Not only did they not get rid of Luo Qingtong and avenge their daughter and apprentice, but the Dean of the Grand Hall had the upper hand. Seeing the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Qinxian kneeling on the ground and slapping themselves hard, Su Deheng and Shin Chuyue's faces were extremely ugly, and they directly left. Chapter 1080. Luo Qingtong didn't stay too long in the Elders Guild. After watching Mo Qinxian and the elders of the Saint Academy slap each other for a while, she left the follow-up of the matter to Mo Qianai and the Grand Dean. She believed that the two of them must know what to do best for them. In order to frame the Grand Dean and Ma Qinyi, Mo Qinxian and the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy dragged them into the water. They used a lot of forces and connections to do something in their mansions. After Ma Qinyi and the Grand Dean escaped this time, they immediately organized people to investigate this matter. They found out all the evidence that Mo Qinxian and the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy had slandered them. By the way, they also destroyed all their forces and connections. Those that should be dealt with were dealt with and those that should be destroyed were destroyed. For a time, Mo Qinxuan's forces were severely reduced and he suffered a great loss. His forces and connections were not as good as those of Ma Qinyi. Now he was even more miserable after being messed with like this. He was so angry that he flew into a rage and vomited blood continuously. If it weren't for the last belief that the dragon chi in his body was stronger than that of Ma Qinyi and that he could definitely defeat him in the future and climb to the top, Mo Qinxian would have been completely disheartened and unable to recover from the setback. With all kinds of dark thoughts in his mind, Mo Qinxuan's face became colder and more malicious. And the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were all deprived of their status as elders and mentors and expelled from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin under the evidence presented by the Grand Dean. It was not over. Because they were suspected of murdering the Crown Prince and distorting the truth, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were arrested by the elite troops sent by the royal family of the Empire of Qin as soon as they left the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. This group of people would be severely punished. For a time, all kinds of collapse and crying sounds were heard. At this time, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy realized what they had done. They couldn't say how regretful they were. But at this time there was no medicine for regret. Luo Qingtong on the other hand didn't care about these things. She handed these matters over to the Grand Principal and Ma Qinyi to deal with, and didn't care about it anymore. She was currently preparing to give Ma Qinyi the reverse luck seizing technique. A month's time was almost up, and Ma Qinyi's dragon energy was almost fully nourished. When the time limit was up, Luo Qingtong would directly help him reverse the luck seizing technique. At that time, all the dragon chi that Mo Qinxian had absorbed from him over the years would be returned. Before that, Luo Qingtong still had some things to do. Here, this is for you. Luo Qingtong gave Ma Qinyi the information about Mo Qinxian that Yi Qianren had checked for her before. The latter took it and glanced at it. His eyes immediately widened. This. Ma Qinyi was shocked. Where did you get this information? It recorded all the things that Mo Qinxian had done in recent years, as well as the connections and forces of all parties. Both in the open and in the dark. It had everything. Even some of the secrets of the royal family were involved, and even Ma Qinyi didn't know about it. Ma Qinyi was shocked by the details of this information. Then he thought of the relationship between Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and quickly felt relieved. Did the evil Dr. Ghost Eye give this to you? With that person's status in the black field and the manpower he could use, he could indeed find these things. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.